how the actions of one person can affect many, happening in New Brunswick, the province that appeared to have kicked COVID-19's butt, with no deaths and all 120 cases resolved. Now a new outbreak linked to a doctor in the city of Campbellton, right at the Quebec border.
There's a black bear. Stay in your house.
Traveled to
Black bear. Stay in your house.
COVID-19 and then quarantine when he returned, going back to work at the local hospital, potentially exposing 150 people to the virus.
The circumstances of this outbreak are completely preventable in spite of all of our efforts to keep the virus at bay.
Look out. Stay in your house. Yeah, stay in your house. Don't get in the black bear.
As the RCMP investigates the situation, the doctor could face charges. All of this happening after more restrictions were just lifted in New Brunswick, with people in this area now losing those freedoms. I'm Jamie Pulfer.
You're listening to 680 News. Now 680's Laura Carney is joining us now with the latest international developments with COVID-19.
Another devastating day in Brazil, recording more than 26,000 new cases of COVID-19, a record daily high, and registering more than 1,000 new deaths for a third straight day. Brazil now has a total of 438,000 infections. They've been dealing with terrible messaging from the government. The president accused of putting the economy ahead of people's lives. CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh.
Keep that rainforest burning down and grow that corn beef that we don't buy. Dismissive
take on the virus. Many have accused of
nobody, so you do it again, right?
His approval ratings have slipped to some degree.
In South Korea, schools closing again a few days after reopening due to a spike in new cases. Authorities working to contain the new cluster that has come out of a warehouse near Seoul. The BBC's Laura Vicker.
South Korean health officials are excellent at tracking, tracing, and testing everyone in relation to the warehouse. But these outbreaks continue to happen.
On Monday, the UK and Spain will see measures lifted. On Tuesday, in France, bars, cafes, and restaurants will reopen. And COVID-19 basically eradicated in New Zealand, where just a single person is still known to have the virus. I'm Laura Carney.
In Italy now, there is some new evidence of long-term lung problems for patients who have recovered from COVID-19.
The Italian government's Technical Scientific Committee warns people who recover from COVID-19 could have respiratory problems for months afterwards. As Italy's top soccer teams resume training, well over a dozen players have tested positive for coronavirus. Italian doctors have found many patients who are hospitalized or intubated have respiratory problems that can last for months. 30% of recovered patients in Italy have shown diffuse signs of pulmonary fibrosis, scars on the lung tissue that come with an irreversible compromising of breathing capability. Megan Williams, ABC News, Rome. 680 News Time, 10:21.
Time now for traffic and weather together on the ones. Here's Jordan Kerr.
Well, this report is brought to you by Premier Automotives, that is Lexus of Oakville. If you're traveling on the 403 or QEW through Burlington and Hamilton right now, you're going to find some really heavy rain, so drive carefully according to the conditions. Everything's moving a bit slower because of that. Traffic spotters pleading to tell people to put your headlights on when you're going through this, because they're describing it as blinding rain, really tough to see anyone, so make sure you're driving appropriately through here. Outside of that stretch of Burlington and Hamilton right now, it's mostly in Burlington at this point where we're seeing the actual slowdowns going westbound on the QEW. All the other highways and expressways are moving well. We have some issues happening in town. Tapscott, east of Markham Road, is closed from north of Finch to south of McNichol at the train tracks. It's all because of a collision there at the train tracks, so use Markham Road instead to avoid that. And we also have Kingston Road and Morningside. Traffic lights are out because of a crash. At eastbound Kingston Road and Morningside, the right lane is blocked up, all because of that collision as well, so make sure you drive carefully through there. Police are on point duty. Nobody looks after you like Lexus of Oakville, now open and looking after you with guest visits by appointment only to ensure your safety. Book your time to visit at lexusofoakville.ca. Next report, 10:31 with the forecast, Denise Andriacci.
The risk for some scattered showers and isolated thunderstorm activity today across southern Ontario. Some areas of the province definitely seeing a higher risk of some intensity and some severity in these storms, but the GTA not completely out of the woods, so we'll be watching the radar very closely. For Saturday and Sunday, we're tapping into a fresher air mass, highs near 20 for Saturday, near 16 for Sunday. Lots of sunshine on Monday, and temperatures again likely in the upper teens, just a hint below season. 21 degrees at Pearson Airport. It is mostly cloudy, 23. It feels like 30.
Well, coming up at the bottom of the hour, our moment Qureshi is following the latest in Minneapolis today, following another night of fires, looting, and arrests in Minneapolis.
Black bears, the latest from that for us coming up at
10:30.
680 News Time, 10:23.
At Hydro One, we created the Pandemic Relief Program because our team believes
Watch out, that black bear is a black gun.
being disconnected.
Wherever our customers are, we need to do what we can to restore power. Families should feel safe and secure. Being here for our customers is more important than ever.
We believe in keeping our community strong and helping them grow.
To help customers in need, we're offering financial relief and payment flexibility. Learn more at hydroone.com.
News.
You've been bankrupt more people and sick people.
More
Fucking
than
decades.
ever.
Listen 3, 4, 5 times a day.
This is 680 News.
Ask to play us on your smart speaker.
You're listening to 680 News. It's now 10:24. And we have an update now on that black bear situation seen in several backyards in a Barrie neighborhood. Barrie police now saying the bear has been safely tranquilized by Ministry of Natural Resources staff. Police say the bear is now asleep in a backyard on Little Avenue near the 400. They say he will be now put into a special trailer and relocated safely. Well, coming up
promise,
in
promise,
60
promise,
seconds,
we won't
we've got
turn him into
Irene
bear
Brooklyn
stew.
standing by at the business center
believe you,
looking at
you gotta
Canada's GDP, and it has taken a big dive. We'll have details in just a few moments.
680 News Time, 10:25.
Protect yourself, protect your family, and protect the ones around you. SafetyMasks.ca is your one source for personal protective equipment. From safety masks to gloves, hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, and gowns. SafetyMask.ca offers free shipping anywhere in Canada. Convenient family protection packages are now available. Order from home at SafetyMasks.ca and have your shipment delivered straight to your door with free shipping within Canada. Order online, SafetyMasks.ca.
There's nothing quite like the live concert experience. So Budweiser Stage is bringing the show home to you. Budweiser Stage at home. The premier music experience, connecting you to your favorite artists. With performances by the Black Crows, special guest The Trues, hosted by Tara Sloan. Saturday, May 30th at 8, Budweiser Stage at home. Bringing the music home. Only on
So what are all you people gonna do when the MNR can't do that when the Barrie police or OPP or whatever
So
can't
now for the
fucking do all
680 News
that?
Business Report, we're going to check into the business center with
Oh, I'll go and shoot it. You ain't got no
You're
right
looking
to.
at some GDP numbers that were coming out today, and again, given the pandemic situation we're dealing with, not so good.
No, not so good. Statistics Canada, Steve, says the economy in the first quarter had its worst showing since 2009. This says steps taken to slow the spread of COVID-19 forced businesses
Yeah, but the
across
economy's not
country
going to be
close
the problem.
their
We're
doors
spending
and lay off
shitloads of money.
workers.
We don't have the
StatsCan
money.
says gross domestic product fell at an annualized rate of 8.2% in the first 3 months of 2020. The collapse came as GDP for March fell 7.2% as restrictions by public health officials began rolling out during the month, including school closures, border shutdowns, and travel restrictions. Events earlier in the quarter also had a drag on GDP, with StatsCan pointing to the Ontario teacher strikes and rail blockades in February, as well as a drop in oil prices. Household spending was down 2.3% in the first quarter of 2020. That is the steepest quarterly drop ever recorded. On the markets, we have got a sea of red. Investors also waiting to hear from the U.S. President Donald Trump, expected to talk about China and U.S.-China relations. Weighing also on the markets. The TSX is down 71 points, sitting 15,191. The losses are pretty broad-based. We are seeing two sectors that have modest advances. That would be materials as well as gold. Gold stocks have been hammered for much of the week, so we've got some bargain hunting as well as the safe haven of gold. Shares in Barrick Gold up 25 cents. Kinross Gold shares up 11 cents. Shares in Agnico Eagle Mines higher by 78 cents. Financial stocks among the leading decliner for the TSX. All 6 of Canada's big banks have now reported earnings. They have all set aside a boatload of cash for bad loans. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 147 points to 25,253. The S&P 500 lower by 14. The Nasdaq giving back 8 points. Crude futures down 22 cents, 33.49 a barrel. Despite that, we've seen really strong gains for oil in the month of May. Gold is up just over $16, 17.44.70 an ounce to Canadian dollar, 72.64 cents US. That is little changed at the 680 Business Center. I'm Irene Franklin.
They may not consider themselves heroes, but Unifor Local 414 points out across the nation. Essential workers, grocery clerks, food delivery workers, truckers,
So I'm very
and
suspicious what the fuck is going on with these
health and
insects.
welfare to keep the rest of us going. By leaving their homes,
I slept like 10 hours yesterday. And was not covered in bugs, was not bitten, nothing. I can't lay down for 10 minutes without getting covered in these goddamn things. They bite me, they get pissed off because they can't feed off me.
At BDO Debt Solutions, they know that life is full of unexpected events that can weaken your financial well-being. Many people who come to BDO for help had to go through tough times and take on debt in order to survive. If you're experiencing difficulty, a BDO licensed insolvency trustee can provide a free initial consultation and offer you services over the phone to explain all your debt relief options and help you find a solution that works for you and your family. Call 1-855-BDO-DEBT to book a free over-the-phone consultation.
And just a reminder that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is going to be holding his daily briefing about 45 minutes earlier than usual in just a couple of moments, and we, of course, will take that live when it happens. In terms of your forecast for today, we are looking at cloudy conditions with a good chance we might see some thunderstorms this afternoon, a guaranteed high of 23. For tomorrow, partly cloudy, a high of 19, and looking at Sunday right now, mainly sunny, a little cooler, and a high of 15. Right now in downtown Toronto, it's overcast and 21. The News Watch never stops. 680 News, we are live 24/7. 680 News Time, 10:30.
These motherfuckers are
News in Toronto. This is 680 News.
Here are Sarah Barrett and Steve Robert. Good morning. It's Friday, May 29th.
And good morning. Here's what's making news this hour.
A black CNN reporter is arrested live on the air during another night of protests over the death of George Floyd.
Oh,
An unarmed black man who was killed by a white police officer in Minneapolis.
President Trump taking to Twitter as the unrest raged on. One tweet slapped with a warning from the social media giant, saying it violates its rules on glorifying violence.
From hotspots to varying work sectors, the province is set to unveil a promised testing strategy today to help gauge success through the reopening of our economy. The Prime Minister will speak soon as the federal government extends the ban on cruise ships in Canada due to COVID-19 and invests an additional $650 million
the cruise ships just cruising around.
Baseball looks bleak, but there's still time to get a deal done and gaining momentum for reseeding the NHL playoffs. Sports at 45.
They leave from here. They don't come here.
Brent for North American markets. The TSX is down 91 points. The Dow 128. Oil also lower. Business at 56.
Don't come back.
680 News Time, 10:31.
Happening now, instead of going to traffic, let's go live to Ottawa, where the Prime Minister is speaking.
I want to begin with an update on where this works.
You were already talking, bro.
Yesterday, the premiers and I, along with Deputy Prime Minister Freeland, had our 11th First Ministers meeting since this crisis began. We discussed the very concerning reports regarding certain long-term care homes in Ontario and Quebec. The Canadian Armed Forces reported is deeply disturbing. That any senior would face this kind of treatment is unacceptable. As I said to the premiers, our government will be there to support them as we work together to ensure that our elders receive the care they deserve. In our meeting, we also talked about what we need to do together to help businesses reopen and get people back on the job while keeping our communities safe. Moving forward, it will become even more important to quickly identify and then isolate this virus. To do that effectively, we need to coordinate across the country. A number of provinces have already reached out to us for support on contact tracing, and our governments are currently working together on a data sharing platform. And yesterday, First Ministers were briefed on the work being done by the COVID-19 Immunity Task Force, which will coordinate blood test surveys across Canada. The Premiers and I also spoke about support for workers during this difficult time. Our government will continue discussions with the provinces on ensuring that as we enter the recovery phase, every worker in Canada has 10 days of paid sick leave a year. Because No one.
You need 14 days to get over the
day off sick.
You wanted 14 and you dropped it to 10.
Hier, les premiers ministres, la vice-première ministre Freeland et moi avons discuté des rapports très inquiétants parus cette semaine concernant certains établissements de soins de longue durée.
The very preoccupying reports we received regarding long-term care homes in Ontario and Quebec. We should do more for our seniors. And the governor, as I said, the government will be here to help them, support them, and give our seniors the care they deserve. And we also tackled the manner in which we might work together for the purpose of detecting quickly the virus and isolate it. And the premiers received an update regarding the work of the task force regarding the COVID-19 coordinating group for blood tests in the country. We also discussed the way we might support workers during these difficult times, and our government is still holding discussions with the provinces in order for us, when recovery starts, each worker had 10 days of paid sick leave a year, and will be working with the leaders of First Nations, Inuit, and the Métis Nation for the purpose of supporting their communities during the crisis. We have invested in all kinds of areas for Indigenous communities or companies, help to students and the people living outside the reserves. But we have more to do, and today we are moving to another step.
We're investing $650 million to support Indigenous communities on healthcare, income support, and new shelters for women. Let me start with the first pillar, which is healthcare. Although we've made progress, there are still communities that are not properly equipped to handle a COVID-19 outbreak, and we need to address that. That's why we're investing over $285 million for public health in First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. These funds will go toward more nurses, will help procure specialized supplies, and will support work with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities on continued community-driven responses. Having the right health care is essential, but it isn't the only concern facing communities right now. Because of this pandemic, a lot of people also need a hand in paying for the basics. So, as the second pillar of this investment, we're boosting the On-Reserve Income Assistance Program. This money will support people living on reserve who need help paying for things like groceries, cleaning supplies, or rent. A portion of this funding will also help First Nations communities continue to provide services like skills training and support for people as they navigate federal benefits. The work being done in communities by members of the communities is incredibly important to help people get through this very challenging time. And that brings me to the third pillar of this funding, investment in shelters. In April, we announced $10 million so that emergency shelters for Indigenous women and children could adapt to the new challenges posed by COVID-19. This is vital support in the short term, but in the long term, more still needs to be done. So today I can announce that our government is investing an additional $85 million for new shelters for Indigenous women. These shelters will be built in communities across the country, including in the north. No one should have a place to stay when they're unsafe. No one should have a place to stay. No one should have to stay in a place where they're unsafe. No one should be forced to choose between violence or homelessness. These new shelters will offer a path forward when people need it most. Ce matin, j'annonce un nouvel investissement.
This morning, I'm announcing a new investment of $650 million in order to help Indigenous communities through this crisis, and we are investing $285 million in health care, and in order to increase the number of nurses working for First Nations and to buy also specialized equipment. And these funds will be used also to help the work which we are carrying out with the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities in order to focus our action on healthcare in those communities, and we will be increasing the income support program to help them with their daily expenditures. And part of this funding will be helping these First Nations community to receive important services. And we'll be finally investing $85 million in new shelter homes for Indigenous women. And these new shelters, which will be located within the communities, will offer those women a secure place and resources as they need it most.
Today with an update on another measure we've taken to keep Canadians safe. Earlier this morning, Minister Garneau announced that large cruise ships will not be allowed in Canadian waters until at least October 31st. This decision extends the one we made in March, which was taken to protect our coastal communities. COVID-19 is still a very serious threat, but with the right plan and with the right investments, we will weather this storm together. Merci.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now go to the phone for questions. One question, one follow-up. Operator.
Thank you. Merci. First question, Kate Bongaro, Bloomberg. Line open.
Hi, Prime Minister. I have a question about the Finance Ministry has updated the cost estimates for CERB and the wage subsidy that shows companies aren't using dues as much as you'd hope. And it seems that they're happy that the government is footing the bill for this these programs. Is this smaller take-up of the wage subsidy a concern for you and the attitude you're seeing from businesses?
I think it demonstrates how hard this pandemic hit our economy and how many people actually found themselves without a paycheck, which is why we were glad we have the CERB to be able to support millions of Canadians who need help paying for groceries, paying their rent. But as we move forward and as businesses start to reopen and need to get people back to work, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy will become more and more important, which is why we extended it throughout the summer and will continue to encourage employers to rehire employees to be able to get our economy going once again.
We have recognized that the situation is extremely serious, and this is why we want to provide direct assistance to the CERB to millions of Canadians who lost their paycheck. However, as we reopen the economy and as we restart to work through our businesses, we need for those businesses to rehire the former employees and new employees, and this wage subsidy will help them do so and do what's necessary for the purpose of restarting our economy.
So while China has remained quite vocal and firm in pursuing its more aggressive foreign policy, including towards Canada with the Meng case that we saw continuing on Wednesday, and Canada has been rather avoidant in using strong words against China. I'm wondering how much more aggression from Beijing will it take for you to stand up to Xi Jinping, and are you afraid of him?
We have continued to put Canadian interests and Canadian principles at the forefront of everything we do around the world, including with China. We will continue to work to ensure that Canadians have the equipment that we need to get through this situation, while at the same time expressing our concern for the two Canadians arbitrarily detained in China, and continue to highlight our concerns around Hong Kong and around questions that need to be asked for the WHO. We will continue to stand up for our principles and continue to look out for the interests of all Canadians. Nous allons continuer de souligner.
We shall continue to emphasize our concerns regarding China, about Hong Kong, about Canadians who are detained, and also WHO, all the while guaranteeing Canadians that they can receive the equipment that we need from countries throughout the world, including China. So we will always put first the interests of Canadians, because this is what they expect of us.
Thank you. Merci. Prochaine question, Michel Lamarche, TVA. À vous.
Mr. Trudeau, this morning we heard Mr.
indigenous women. But he just told everybody that he's handing no money to Indians. He is it. I got to put up with these assholes every fucking go. I pay your way. I pay your way.
Eventually, we should
forgo
the reimbursement.
I'm worth $3 million. The interest on my account pays for everything I use for everything.
Obviously, my first Canadian, my first concern goes to Canadians, people who need to manage through the crisis and come out of it and having
telling all the white guys to fucking justify being on.
Money in the pockets of Canadians. So we work with airlines, we work together with all Canadians in order to find a way that will enable us to help Canadians all the while making sure that we keep a healthy airline industry once the crisis is over. It is quite a difficult challenge, but we do know and understand Canadians' preoccupation in this matter.
This pandemic has been on Canadians, on getting them the support they need, which is why we put out millions, billions of dollars in support for Canadians to help them get through this. I hear clearly the concerns that Canadians have around their air tickets. We will continue to work with the industry and with concerned groups of Canadians to ensure that we find a fair way through this. But I know Canadians at the same time want to make sure we continue to have an airline industry after this very difficult pandemic, getting that balance right.
It's very difficult, but it's an easy pandemic. You got money for this one. If we get a second one right now, then you're going to have a hard pandemic, buddy.
Do you think that the survival of the airline industry is threatened? And I'd like to hear you about the long-term care homes. So because don't you think that you should also adopt national or pan-Canadian directives? Well, while we were discussing the situation with premiers last night, we wanted to make sure that all Canadians should receive high standard and quality care in those homes in particular. This is why we want to help the provinces to come to a renewed control of the situation, and at the same time we were looking more to the long term and for the purpose of helping our seniors in order to provide them with all the care that they deserve.
We talked about last night was the importance of ensuring that in the short term we are giving to our seniors all the support they could possibly need through this very difficult pandemic. But we all very much agree that as we move forward, we need to make sure that all of our seniors everywhere across the country get the top quality service and care they deserve. And the federal government will happily be a part of those discussions as provinces lean in on this issue.
Merci. Prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci.
Next question. Good morning, Mr. Trudeau. Back to the question asked by my colleague Michel. You haven't answered the question regarding the refunds of airline tickets for flights which have been cancelled. You say that you want to put money into Canadians' pockets. Should we understand that for you, airline tickets that Canadians have already purchased are luxury items which do not deserve to be refunded? Answer. On the contrary, I do understand that Canadians who have saved money for a long time for the purpose of buying their tickets, which are expensive, should be helped. So this is why we're working with airlines throughout the world, and we'll have news over the next few years.
Mathematically, he understands an airline ticket is expensive. But he doesn't understand what that means to come out of his part. He doesn't understand the concept of money. How could he?
The current military contingents which has been sent to the long-term care homes is not the work is not sustainable. So what will happen in the future?
Yeah, more than sustainable. We just got to get
our seniors are going through a very difficult situation, and as I said,
you walk off
the federal government will be giving help and supporting the provinces so that they will get a good control of the situation, because the situation of our seniors is very important for us. However, asking the Canadian Armed Forces to work in those LTCH is, as of necessity, a short-term solution. So we want to make sure that we will have solutions which will be viable and sustainable over as we look forward. And this is what we're discussing with the Quebec and Ontario Minister. And we will continue doing it.
Government ensure that we are there to support the provinces as they work to regain control over senior care in their jurisdictions. The situation going on in Quebec and Ontario is extremely worrisome, and we will be there to help. This is something that all Canadians want to see, and quite frankly, women and men of our armed forces are there to protect Canadian lives and are happy to be doing it, even at risk to themselves. That's what they do. We should all be incredibly proud of them. At the same time, I have stressed from the beginning that soldiers in our nursing homes is not a long-term solution.
Yes, it is.
It's a short-term fix. And we will continue to work with Quebec and with other provinces to ensure that they are able to regain control over senior care in their provinces. We will continue to be there with them to find solutions for the medium and longer term.
Thank you. Next question. Merci. Question suivante.
Thank you. Merci. Prochaine question, Hélène Buzetti, Le Devoir.
Next question, Hélène Buzetti, Le Devoir. Good morning, Mr. Trudeau. Earlier this week, we heard that it was not possible to extend isolation and confinement. Now we have had old people who are dying from COVID, so maybe we have been invited to establish or adopt more discreet protection measures. What do you think of it? Answer. Well, first of all, we do listen to our public health experts who know exactly what we should be doing to protect all Canadians. Of course, our seniors are more vulnerable and they might die from COVID, and we've seen the sad results and the number of deaths throughout the population, but more particularly amongst the seniors. So we will continue to reopen our economy, to restart it in a gradual and responsible way, all the while complying with the scientific directives we receive and also protecting Canadians in general. And we need to have Canadians, if we want to restart the Canadian economy, they have to be in good health.
Oui, en fait, sur un autre sujet, vous avez parlé de
another topic. You talked with the premiers, the sickness leave, and what has been the reaction? Because not all premiers seem to be in agreement with you.
During that time,
during the week, you have offered some telephone operators for the purpose of managing those 23,000 calls a day. I'd like to know if the premiers took up your offer. Yes, several provinces did take up our offer to help for the purpose of improving the contact tracing activity. We know that screening and contact tracing will be essential if there is a second wave or even a local outbreak in the future. Regarding the sickness leave, we continued working on it yesterday again, and not all are in agreement and not all of the same perspective on the issue. Some are concerned that we might be adding to the expenses from private sectors, companies, but I reassured them and I told them that the government would be taking on board a large share of this support for people who do need sickness leave, because we know that at the fall, people will try and hide the fact that they're the sneezing, for instance, because they will want to continue to work in order to support their families. This is not something advisable for the whole of our society, so we should avoid people having to choose between their health and work and a paycheck.
Mr. Julie Van Dusen, CBC. You mentioned obviously that soldiers they blew the whistle on the horrors that are going on in seniors' homes that a lot of families already know about, but they're not the long-term solution. Now, your letter here that you put out today after meeting with the premiers, you talk about agreeing to take action. I haven't heard any action. I mean, you can't go back on the soldiers because you say they're not the long-term solution. So can you be very specific? What is your action? Because people actually, when you say we're there to help, they actually want to know the details. Is it more money with strings attached? Is it national standards? I mean, what do those words mean?
We recognize that long-term care and senior care is a provincial area of jurisdiction. But all Canadians are united in wanting to see better support for our seniors right now and in the years to come. So we have said at the federal level that we will be there to support the provinces, both in the immediate, whether it's more rent money or more resources or whatever it is that the provinces need to get control once again over their long-term care facilities. There are a number of provinces across the country where, although there have been challenges, there are not nearly the scale of problems that we've seen in other places. So we recognize there is a great variance across the country.
Use that we recognize line
our
a lot,
jobs to look out for all Canadians and make sure that everywhere across the country people are supported, and we will be there depending on what the provinces need, what their situation is, to make sure that all seniors are protected.
And you've been listening to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's daily briefing. He started by talking about a phone call with the premiers last night where he pledged federal support for provinces to address disturbing conditions in long-term care homes, particularly in Ontario and Quebec following that military report. He also mentioned that discussions are ongoing with the provinces about offering Canadian workers 10 paid sick leave days. Trudeau then talked about his government's investment of $650 million to help Indigenous communities cope with the pandemic. He says the second part of that investment is boosting on-reserve income assistance program that helps people who live on reserves with things like groceries, cleaning supplies, or help with rent. A third part to that investment is shelters. He says $10 million will be spent on emergency shelters helping Indigenous women and children suffering domestic violence. The Prime Minister also repeated the announcement from the Transport Minister earlier today that cruise ships with more than 100 passengers will remain banned from operating in Canadian waters until at least the end of October. We'll bring you more from the Prime Minister's briefing coming up at 11 o'clock.
680 News Time, now 10:56.
Time for the 680 News Business Report with Irene Precklett. Sarah, Canadian National Railway says revenue ton miles, which is a key industry metric, fell 15% year over year in April and 21% in May due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The company's CEO says auto volumes have dropped more than 90% year over year. He says earnings from crude by rail and frac sand are, quote, as bad as can be. That is amid a global glut of oil and a pandemic-induced plunge in demand, both of which have sent oil prices to near record lows over the past 2 months. However, he says grain revenues will likely hit new monthly highs in May, June, and July. This after notching record levels in March and April. That follows a backlog owing to a late wet crop last year. On the markets, shares in Canadian National Railway down 86 cents to $118.17. Shares in Canadian Pacific Railway down $2.90 to $342.98. Down is the direction for most Canadian stocks. The TSX is down 97 points to 15,165. We also had Canada's GDP numbers released today, and not a pretty picture.
8.2%, but
we're
they thought it was
seeing strength. Gold stocks, many perhaps heading to the safe haven of gold as well. Gold stocks for the most part this week have been lower.
Like it's Bismarck, like you done said it again. Fuck for one shot, you know me, I'd rather hit you in your credit for that.
According to says, if you don't equalize the increase of $1.83 per share, continued weakness in financials, effective unbelievable to
Oh, come on, what did you fucking do?
Of course, Canada's sixth biggest banks reporting earnings today. The big takeaway from the earnings, revenue down, but all the banks putting aside.
That's what TG. Yeah. I speak what I fucking want, I say what I fucking want, Yo, my blood type is straight killer nigga running this house. Kidnap a faggot ass nigga who be running his mouth. It's the 7th letter, LOC, and the 11th letter. My twin and arm, we stay in your lane if you know it's better. Can't change cause I'm stuck on some hot shit. Try fly past in the car, we shoot the glass in the cockpit. Then run up on you, see you wall, and leave you stretched out on the concrete like you hugging the floor. I'm a thug nigga, hair still nappy, pants still baggy, and keep it strapped in case niggas try to get at me. Fuck I look like, shooting fair ones and fist fighting. I smoke too many cigarettes, nigga, I'd rather light him. Cause I ain't got the lungs for that sweaty shit. Hard on, I slap down your bitch on some petty shit. Real talk, ain't with the back and forth shit, I let my still talk. Fully loaded whip, battleship like it's Bismarck. Lock you done did it again, fuck a one shot. You know me, I'd rather hit you and your friend.
And Sarah Barrett.
Good morning. This is Friday, the 29th of May.
Good morning. Here's what's making news this hour.
The morning after, protesters set fire to a police precinct and smashed storefronts in Minneapolis as tempers boil over the death of George Floyd, who died in police custody. The province will unveil detailed plans to ramp up COVID-19 testing today, targeting hotspots as part of a whole new testing strategy. The federal government extends the ban on cruise ships in Canada during the COVID-19 pandemic, and it won't commit to forcing airlines to provide full refunds for canceled trips. Landeskog glad to be on a healthy team again, and Liverpool unlikely to win at home. Sports at 15.
The TSX bounced away from a triple-digit tumble while the Dow is now down more than 200 points, and Kennedy growth
On the streets with the street sweepers, it's so sweet. Once you fuck with the stone, 30 on their head through the sweat, I see the pulse beat. Cops on your body in the bushes cause your corpse beat. You niggas already know who I am. Feeling like Deuce Man, how I don't got plans. We the type to just hop us the van. Got enough in the clip to hit you and your mans. Yeah. Wow, rap nigga. That's a rap nigga. That's what TG nigga. I say what I want, nigga. You got a problem, come check. Come check, come test it. You're attacking the capital of engagement. So walk around on the front page. Holla.
That's right, it's just cutting through. It's cutting through the heat. With the knife, it's cutting. The heat is all sliced up now.
Y'all said me never did I want you. Oh Lord, me tell you. Whoa, 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 whoa. Take 'em out, bring 'em out, dead. Westwood, hit 'em in the head. 1 gun, 2 gun, 3 gun, 4, 5, 4 o'clock crowd. On air, ready? Yo, Murder, murder. Who the hell heard of them Westwood with your blanket, them jam on me? Murder, murder. We never have peace. We make the black tape. Come on. Jump in the black sheep. We go back to niggas can't play no way. The shit he plays, I keep the sex. No way. That's the black queen, England, and everything the ling a thing. What we bring is the demon and a fiend and abuse. Move get up on the views. We just choose it. So burn the flag. I'm on that double shit. The level can extend down. Yes, yeah. Pass me your track.
My track is nice and
exciting. Westwood, go on, go on. Yeah, red one. Hold it down, hold it down, hold it down. Let the bridges hold it down. DJ Westwood, that's fun crazy. I turn it and make 5-foot kicks. Hit the Westwood whip. What the DJ's on the mix? That's all that hip hop. The down, my nigga, that's fire.
We are live on the air at the moment. This is the four of us. We are one team. But a few moments later, he was arrested while live on the air.
Yeah, one team.
I'm sorry? Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
This nigga don't talk like the other one's doing. Oh, you can go. You can go.
Now, Minnesota State Police did put out a tweet a little while later saying that once they identified him and cleared that he was part of the media, they let him go. However, another CNN reporter who's a white reporter who was at the same scene says that he had a very different experience, told police who he was. They let him carry on, no problem. Now, overnight, police precinct was set on fire. More storefronts were smashed. More storefronts were looted. It looks like this situation will continue to go on for some time as protesters continue to demand for answers. Reporting live, I'm Omer Qureshi.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump's tweets about the George Floyd situation while in the custody of Minneapolis police have now drawn rebuke from Twitter.
He's often stayed silent in the face of white-on-black violence, but yesterday spoke out after seeing video of Floyd gasping for help as a white policeman pinned him to the street.
I feel very, very badly. It's a very shocking.
It makes me think he's autistic too. I think I'm autistic and he's a different strain.
Tweeting when the looting starts, the shooting starts. That drew a warning from Twitter, which says the president violated its rules on glorifying violence. It did not remove the tweet, but anybody looking for it has to click on the warning to see it. Sagar Mangani, Washington.
680 News Time, 11:06. The province is set to release a new COVID-19 testing strategy today. 680 Stuart McGinn joins us live with what's ahead and our latest COVID-19 numbers. Stuart.
Sarah, Ontario's gradual reopening has been all about watching new cases and how many tests have been completed. The province has struggled this month to continually meet their goal of 16,000 tests, and the unveiling of this testing strategy today is meant to help with that while focusing on particular areas where we know more cases are.
We want to encourage people in the hotspots again. We will be announcing that. Please get tested.
Spots, yes, but Ford government says the government also wants to focus on testing asymptomatic workers across different sectors, from automotive to food processing and from taxi drivers to truckers, while continually testing everyone in long-term care. It comes to the province today is reporting 344 new cases of COVID-19, 41 new deaths, and testing numbers that have soared again, with more than 18,000 completed. Today's testing strategy will be explained by a trio of top doctors in the province, hosting a technical briefing about 20 minutes from now. Ford will speak about this afternoon with his Minister of Health and Dr. David Williams. Reporting live, Stuart McGinn, 680 News.
211 now, where the Trudeau government is extending the cruise ship ban.
We can't win collusion. If they could be coordinated, they'd all want to be on it at the same time. Oh, we're all coming on at 12.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his government say cruise ships with 100 passengers or more will still be prohibited from operating in Canada until the end of October.
COVID-19 is still a very serious threat.
However, beginning Canada Day, cruise ships and day cruises with less than 100 passengers may resume some operations if provincial, regional, and local health authorities allow. The Prime Minister also not committing, but also not ruling out, forcing airlines to provide financial refunds to passengers with canceled trips. At the moment, most airlines are providing vouchers or credit. Trudeau says this is a fine balance between consumer protection and not causing financial devastation for airlines. Meanwhile, on long-term care facilities, Trudeau says he spoke with premiers in a call last night and stressed that the federal government will support them to improve those facilities.
Proving there's no money.
And whether it's more rent money
Give them
or
their
more
money, and they're like,
resources
well,
or whatever it is that the provinces need to get control once again over their long-term care facilities.
The government also announcing $650 million in additional funding for Indigenous communities to help them through this pandemic. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
A study from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives is urging the provincial government to set up an eviction prevention plan. Details from 680 business editor Chris McCusker. The study shows 43% of Ontario renters have less than a month's worth of savings, and it suggests targeted rent relief, a slow lifting of the eviction ban, and a return to rent controls will help tenants stay in their homes during and after COVID-19. As it stands right now, once the ban is lifted, tenants who haven't been able to pay rent could be kicked out of their homes. The study suggests Ontario follow BC's lead and establish a temporary rental supplement program. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives says replicating the program in Ontario would cover 185,000 households and cost $70 million a month. At the Business Centre, I'm Chris McCusker.
Well, Blue Jays fans remember Roy Halladay as the consummate professional and one of the best pitchers ever to wear an outfit in this city. However, a documentary debuting in the U.S. tonight reveals a lot more leading up to his death in 2017.
ESPN spending 8 months talking to friends and family of the late Roy Halladay, the results of which airing tonight. Imperfect, the Roy Halladay story has details fans never knew until recently. After he wrapped his final season with the Phillies, addiction to painkillers required rehab. This from Widow Brady.
What barriers existed in his mind to getting help?
The fear of people knowing, of the public scrutiny, of the media going, oh, Roy Halladay went to rehab, he's an addict. He didn't know how to self-evaluate without baseball. He didn't know who he was. He had no clue who he was without baseball.
So that means something. People weird music behind it. Hey, wow,
tonight on the anniversary of his perfect game with the Phillies.
Now, the 680 News gas price update, and Pro predicts the price will not change at midnight. It'll stay at 92.9 cents a liter.
680 News time, 11:10.
Home has never been more important, and now you're relying on home appliances more than ever. That's why, just like you, Appliance Canada is soldiering on. They've adjusted their services, so all their expertise and products are still available online, by email, or by phone. Right now, you need your appliances to be dependable, and the professionals supplying them even more so. That's why Appliance Canada is doing what they can to keep home feeling like home. With free delivery in the GTA, get started at Appliance Canada.
Oh, in case you thought you had to bring that 1,800-pound fridge home in your hatchback. No, we'll deliver it.
680 News time, 11.
Hey, network access fee. Yeah, I paid you a monthly fee. Yeah, and you pay network access fee. Yeah,
this report is brought to you by Lexus of Oakville. We have delays on the go because of this rain. Just be careful on there. Drive according to the conditions. It's affecting most of the GTA,
$10 plus $10.
On the westbound 401, approaching Warren and the collectors on the right shoulder. We still crash cleanup ongoing. It's heavy from Kennedy to approaching Warden and the collectors. And making worse is the fact that it's raining quite heavily through there right now. And then westbound 401
I don't want to get us out of this economic mess. Oh, rip off a bunch of money. Yeah, nobody ever thought of that before.
Approaching Shepherd to the 401 ramps again. Likely because
this was going to borrow from the Chinese while he's trying to blackmail the Chinese.
Jameson to west of it doesn't last too long. On the northbound 404, watch out north of Steele from left shoulder.
Chinese don't know what Donald Trump's trying to do.
Debris reported in this area, not causing a delay. Just something to watch out for as you go around that bend.
He knows that's two different countries. Korea and China is two different countries. He knows that.
Because of crash cleanup, so there's a delay on the skyway as you go up. Again, it doesn't last too long, but just going to over to the right side to avoid
Then he
that.
thinks his friend is now being
In
like
town,
rude to him.
we have traffic lights malfunctioning they're completely not working at Kingston Road and Morningside, all because of a crash that happened earlier this morning. Police were on point duty. Nobody looks after you like Lexus of Oakville, now open, and to keep you and their team safe, you're encouraged to make an appointment to visit and book your time at lexusofoakville.ca. Next report at 11:21 with the forecast. Here's Denise Andriacci.
We could see some showers and thunderstorm activity today across the GTA and southern Ontario, tracking towards parts of cottage country, whether you're heading north or northeast. That's where we see the threat for more severe weather, but there's still that chance here in the GTA, Hamilton, Niagara, to see some intense thunderstorm cells roll across the region. For Saturday, we're tapping into some fresher air, highs only near 20 degrees with clear conditions and lows near 6 for Saturday night. Sunday, sun and cloud with a slight chance of some showers, very slight chance of highs near 16. Your guaranteed high today, 23.
And right now in downtown Toronto, light rain continues and 22 degrees out at Pearson Airport. We get to light rain as well, and a temperature of 21. 6:80 news time, 11:13. Now time for the Scotia iTrade Market Minute, and let's check in at the Business Center. And here's Irene Franklin. Irene?
And Steve, it's a triple-digit tumble for the TSX, down 109 points to 15,153. The losses are pretty broad-based. The two notable exceptions would be material and gold stocks. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 192 points to 25,207. The S&P 500 giving back 18, the Nasdaq is lower by 13. Crude futures down slightly, 15 cents, 33.56 a barrel. The Canadian crude index is down just under 1%. Gold going the other way, up $20. We're sitting at 17.4860 an ounce. The Canadian dollar is down 0.3 of a cent, valued at 72.35 cents US. That's your market minute at the 680 Business Center. I'm Irene Franklin.
Direct invest with Scotia iTrade. Get started in 3 easy steps and begin your investing journey from home today. Learn more at scotiaitrade.com. Amazon is hiring near you. No resume or previous work experience required. Health and safety are a top priority.
But that doesn't mean they're hiring everybody, though. That's the other thing.
Amazon is taking precautions in our buildings.
No, everybody's come out. Well, we got to turn most of you away anyway. So, like, why bother?
Now at amazon.ca/apply. That's amazon.ca/apply. The safety of those around you is more important than ever. The Government of Canada has stated that the use of a non-medical mask or facial covering can be an additional measure you can take to protect others around you. It's important we keep the supply of medical masks for frontline healthcare workers. CanadaMaskSupply.ca offers personal, non-medical masks and face shields at reasonable prices. Proudly made in Canada for Canadians. Buy non-medical masks and face shields now at CanadaMaskSupply.ca. This is All News Radio, 680 News.
And the light rain continues right now in downtown Toronto at a temperature of 22 degrees. Good morning from the 680 News Broadcast Center. I'm Steve Roberts. Here are the top stories on this Friday morning. For a third night in a row, fires were set and violent scenes played out on the streets of Minneapolis, where protests continue over the death of a black man while in police custody. While the latest from that scene coming up. And the province is set to release a new COVID-19 testing strategy today, and it comes as the province announced 344 new cases this morning. We will have more details on that when the Premier is set to speak around 1 o'clock this afternoon. 680 News, of course, will carry that live.
Cut it off. What do you sneak?
Sports Sam from Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Here is Andrew Nye. Andrew.
Steve, Colorado's Gabriel Landeskog says he hasn't put much thought into how competitive games between the top 4 teams in each conference will be, while the rest are competing in play-in series. The Avalanche are the 2 seed in the NHL's Western Conference, and Landeskog told the chance to catch that style. Put it black and blue, no wonder I told that radio show, jazz, balls get slammed, bow! Ooh, it hurts so bad when I smile. Me and the
shots from the crowd. Niggas my face and joke, you know now. Nigga, break falling down, right, falling down, right, falling down. Nigga, break falling down, right, it's crazy. Motherfuckers off the red, cha-cha-cha. Now it's time to get live. With the best, come on, feel the vibration from the station. The pumping frustration in the nation. Why the bridges falling down? They falling down. They falling down. The bridges falling down. You know the up with the wrong nigga rubber. The rap come from the mother. Plus, I got the west with the ain't no other. Bullet straight to shade, your lady pray for your maker. 2 in the heart, a clip in the head, radio, sanctuary, up Westwood. You can get your ass buried. Cause when it's a full moon, you get a chill in his body. Every loser his mind, flicking a shoulder, and they go play tonight. The blood clot warrior, Rasta and Rasta. You sweat Westwood and may not know why. Going up from West when you just don't die. You either crazy like sticky or you're up. Marijuana, marijuana. I want some marijuana.
Niggas since kindergarten, shoot stupid kicks been retarded. I make the coke black when I'm in the market. I make the price drop like I'm in the Target. I'm like a holy prophet trying to make a profit. Rough rider, legendary prospect. I ain't where I'm yet. Shut up my gunman, friend, yo. 10-4-5s in my extender.
I wonder if all the page circles are rinsing away right now. Like,
each whole 7, you getting blessed with it. Yeah, I got so much beef, my ex was stressed with it. Right, it was eye for an eye, Old Testament. Word, the bottom of wells, my heart dwells. Treating these waters like shark tails. Word, my homie got lashed, was on bail. I had waved the shit, got tobacco with full bail. The rats used to see me on range and go tell. Catch him at court, stopping with Jordans like Montel. Swear to God, I would never pray to Jesus. Never. For the extras, I'ma scrape the beaker. Every day I pay for new AKs, like Pablo. Every day I pay for new AKs, El Chapo. Every day I pay for new AKs, like Pablo. Every day I pay for new AKs, El Chapo. Every day I pay for new AKs, like Pablo. Every day I pay for new AKs, El Chapo. Every day I pay for new AKs, like Pablo. Every day I pay for new AKs. Look, the hottest kid in the kitchen, I've been nice. Thoughts of you double crossing me, think twice. Gold chains, gold in my mouth, case full of ammunition. Cocaine on my nosebleed, that's a Kathy Griffin. Bullets light up the night sky and they blame me, boy. Magnums in the back of the whip, they call me baby boy. My ATL sending your section 80, boy. The fuck do you think the mafia pay me for? Young, rich, and handsome, bullets like an anthem. When they started singing, everybody put their hands up. Ain't nobody been doing the shit that I do. Dark boy, how many hoes can I fit inside you? Scratched up with lines around them like the kids of I know. Put up with the Mac and fried them like this shit's a drive-thru. Angels will find you, but I would never pray to Jesus. For the extras, I'ma scrape the beakers. Yeah. Every day I pay for new AKs, like Pablo. Every day I pay for new AKs, El Chapo. Every day I pay for new AKs, like Pablo. Every day I pay for new AKs, El Chapo. Every day I pay for new AKs, like Pablo. Every day I pay for new AKs, El Chapo. Every day I pay for new AKs, like Pablo. Every day I pay for new AKs.
construction zone. That approaching Jameson to just west of it because of that stalled vehicle. Eastbound 401, that's going in from approaching Dixon to the 400. Overall slower than the express, but collector's busy as well. It's likely just because of the rain. Nobody looks after you like Lexus of Oakville, now open, and to keep you and their team safe, you're encouraged to make an appointment to visit. Book your time at lexusofoakville.ca.
Well, I have no reason to show up, but now I'm going to make
and with the forecast, we have Denise Andriacci.
The risk for some scattered showers and isolated thunderstorm activity today across southern Ontario. Some areas of the province definitely seeing a higher risk of some intensity and some severity in these storms, but the GTA not completely out of the woods, so we'll be watching the radar very closely. For Saturday and Sunday, we're tapping into a fresher air mass. Highs near 20 for Saturday, near 16 for Sunday. Lots of sunshine on Monday, and temperatures again likely in the upper teens, just a hint below seasonal. Your guaranteed high today, 23.
Right now in downtown Toronto, we've got some light rain. It is 20 degrees at Pearson Airport. Mostly cloudy, 21 there, a humidex of 28.
And coming up at the bottom of the hour, our Momin Qureshi is following all the happenings in Minneapolis, following a third night in a row where fires were set and violent scenes played out there. And our Stuart McGinn is on the province's latest numbers that are out today when it comes to COVID-19. Plus, you'll have a preview of the new COVID testing strategy that is set to come.
680 News Time, 11:23.
If you've been thinking of getting a backyard garden shed, you should know that DuroShed has been installing sheds at bulk cabinets in the GTA for over 25 years. And DuroShed has social distancing down to a fine art. DuroShed will arrive in the morning, work outside all day, and before supper time, you'll have a beautiful new garden shed, storage shed, or pool cabana. You can watch from inside while we build your DuroShed outside. Check out our photo galleries at duroshed.ca. That's DUROshed.ca.
I was sure I thought it was Duro. Okay.
Giving you everything you need to know.
Stay informed. Stay safe. This is 680 News.
Well, tomorrow is the last day that you can order your Hearts and Smiles t-shirts and masks supporting the Frontline Fund. Rogers Sports and Media launched a campaign earlier this month, and over $1 million has been raised so far. The Frontline Fund supports 150 hospital foundations across Canada, providing healthcare workers with personal protective equipment, resources, and supplies. More information, by the way, can be found at heartsandsmiles.ca. Rogers, by the way, the parent company of this radio station. Well, coming up in 60 seconds, pot stocks are among those losing steam on the TSX today. Irene Franklin with perhaps a reason ahead.
680 News Time, 11:25.
Asking for help isn't always easy, but getting it should be. At Scotiabank, it's easy to apply for financial relief for you or for your business. You can quickly request a payment deferral online or access other financial support options. Or we can talk together about a personalized plan that will help you both today and tomorrow. Visit scotiabank.com/relief to learn more. Scotiabank.
Diligence.
Adjournment.
Constructive dismissal. Blah, blah, blah. A lot of people expect a meeting with a lawyer to sound something like that. But at Rudner Law, our team will provide the clear, practical advice that you need. My name is Stuart Rudner, and right now, the employment relationship is more complicated than ever. Whether you are an employer or an employee, we will help protect your rights.
HR lawyers, employment lawyers, workplace lawyers, whatever you call them, you'll be glad you did. RudnerLaw.ca. News Time, 11:26.
Time now for the 680 News Business Report. We are going to check in at the Business Center with Irene Franklin. Irene, you're talking pot stocks this morning.
Yes, Steve. You might want to say that people are budding out pot stocks.
Oh, Irene.
I know, I couldn't help myself. So one of the reasons, Canopy Growth reporting a loss of $1.3 billion in its fourth quarter due to impairment and restructuring charges. This is the company said it would reset its strategic focus. The cannabis company says it will no longer strive to be the first to every market, but rather focus on select markets where it can become a leader in consumer insights and product development. It says its core markets will be Canada, the U.S., and Germany, with a focus on recreational recreational and medical products. The shift comes as Canopy reports a loss of $3.72 per share for the quarter ending March 31st. That compares with a loss of $1.10 per share in the same quarter a year earlier. Net revenue totaling $107.9 million. That is up from $94.1 million. Canopy says it expects its 2021 financial year to be a transition year as it rolls out a new organizational design and implements other changes. So Canopy Growth is one of the most actively traded stocks on the TSX. It is down just over 22%. The TSX has momentarily backed away from a triple-digit tumble, down 98 points to 15,164. Some key economic data out today, including Canada's GDP. We are also waiting to hear from U.S. President Donald Trump and about China as well as Hong Kong. The Dow is down 199 points to 25,200.
You're spitting on
the S&P 500 lower by 60 and the Nasdaq giving back 9. Crude futures lower by 17 cents to 33.54. Gold is going the other way, up $20. We're sitting at $17.48.30 an ounce. And gold stocks among the leading advancer for the TSX. The gold index as a whole is up 1.8%. Shares in Barrick Gold up 68 cents. Shares in Kinross Gold higher by 15 cents. Shares in Agnico Eagle Mines up $2.33. We're still seeing weakness for banking stocks. Of course, Canada's 6 big banks all reporting earnings this week. One of the key takeaways, all of the banks putting away a lot of cash to cover bad loans with the economic downturn. Shares in Royal Bank down $1.52. Shares in Scotiabank down $1.71. And at the 680 Business Center, I'm Irene Frecklett.
We're proud of it. No bailout for us, thank you. Not yet, anyway.
Good coffee, good meetings, good games, good friends. There's a lot of good to get back to. It all starts with a good sleep. The Good Sleep sale is on now, and our stores are now open. Or shop our amazing deals online. Sleep well, stay well. Sleep Country. 1-877-CARS for kids. KARS Cars for kids. 1-877-CARS for kids. Donate your card today.
Donate online at carsforkids.ca. That's cars with a K. Pickup is quick and easy. You'll benefit a child and get a maximum tax credit.
1-877-CARS for kids. Donate your card.
Also accepting boats, motorcycles, RVs, and truck donations.
Getting you where you need to go
faster.
The most traffic in Toronto. 680 News.
All right, let's take a look at today's Andriachi's forecast. We are looking at cloudy conditions throughout the day today. We are looking at even a chance of more thunderstorm activity, a guaranteed high of 23. For tonight, though, it's going to be cloudy for the most part, a low down to 13. And right now in downtown Toronto, we got some light rain and 22. The News Watch, oh, it never stops. 680 News, we are live 24/7. 680 News time, 11:30.
Number 1 for news in Toronto. This is 680 News.
Here are Sarah Barrett and Steve Robert. Good morning. It's Friday, May 29th.
And good morning. Here's what's making news this hour.
Police precinct set on fire. More store windows smashed overnight in Minneapolis as the protests into George Floyd's death continue. The unarmed black man was killed by a white police officer.
Anger and disbelief dominating the discourse on social media. The brunt of the anger directed toward Donald Trump's Twitter tirade, flagged by Twitter for glorifying violence.
They said they'll ramp it up. Now they'll explain how. The province is unveiling a new detailed testing strategy for COVID-19 today.
That's good. My question is, where are you finding people to test?
People that the pie and NHLers prefer reseeding
test positive that aren't getting tested don't
care. The TSX down 100 points. The Dow is down 202, and the cruise ship season in Canada all but docked. Business at 56. Sometimes for traffic and weather together on the one.
Some people need tested over and over.
This report is brought to you by Metrolinx. Come as a new issue on the eastbound 401 affecting one of the ramps. The southbound Leslie ramp to the eastbound 401 is closed right now because of a collision. The crash happened at the very end of the ramp, so it's also impacting volume on the east 401 in the collectors. First of all, eastbound 401 is slow from Dixon to the 400 express and collectors, and now jammed east of Baby to just east of Leslie in the collectors. Everyone's slowed down because of that on-ramp closure. Westbound 401 issues approaching Warden, the collectors completely cleared away. Here to find the delay southbound on the 404 approaching the 401. And northbound on the DVP, it's getting busy north of Lawrence up to York Mills. Again, though, we've had a lot of rain on the go and some wet roads. Good news on the westbound Gardner. Problems at Jameson have cleared away. It is heavy approaching Dufferin to west of Jameson, but the problems are gone. And Toronto bound on the QEW issues on the Burlington Skyway have cleared away as well. Steele's happening east between Redley Avenue and Silver Star Boulevard is fully closed to vehicles and pedestrians from 8 p.m. tonight until June 1st at 6 a.m. Visit Metrolinx.com for more info. Next report 11:41 with the forecast. Denise Andriacci.
Showers and thunderstorms for pockets of the GTA as the risk across southern Ontario for active weather today is pretty big. Most of the province will be affected by active weather. Again, it will be scattered and isolated, so some areas may get away scot-free, others not so much, and we're keeping an eye on the radar. Tomorrow, we'll tap into a fresher air mass for Saturday, highs near 20 degrees. Clear conditions Saturday night, chilly lows near 6. Your guaranteed high today, 23.
And right now in downtown Toronto, light rain and 22. Out at Pearson Airport right now, light rain and 21. 680 Newstown, 11:33.
Another night of fires, looting, and arrests in Minneapolis as protests continue over the death of a black man while in police custody. State police and the U.S. National Guard have been brought in to help stem the violence.
And our Moment Qureshi is following all the latest developments in Minnesota right now, joining us live now with more. Moment?
Steve, it was another intense night in Minneapolis.
Protesters calling
for answers in the death of George Floyd, the unarmed black man who was killed by a white police officer while in police custody. Those 4 police officers that were involved in the incident have been fired, but people are calling for arrests and charges to be laid. Police precinct was set on fire last night. There was storefront smash. There was looting as well. Police did have to move in the early morning hours and clear people out. Things are very calm right now in Minneapolis. You can see some of the damage and destruction that's been left behind as crews clean up. Now, part of the story that unfolded this morning was Omar Jimenez. He is a CNN reporter, a black man who is a CNN reporter. He was on scene there reporting, and state police moved in towards him. He explained who he was, what outlet he worked for, that he was live on the air at the time, but was still arrested and taken to custody at that time and was released about half an hour later. He says at this point he has still not been given a good explanation as to what happened.
Not only did we identify us multiple times, but when we were led away, we sat in that van for must have been 20 to 30 minutes. Plenty of time for it to be circulating to show that we were literally on live TV. You could match up my name, which they had taken at that point, with my CNN credential badge here.
Bro, these are cops. They're dumb. They don't follow. Yeah, you could do that. That would make sense. He
did say who he was. There's people with him. And also, there was another white CNN reporter there at the same scene who says that he was treated very differently. He explained who he was, and police let him proceed. But we are expecting to hear from the governor of Minnesota today, as well as potentially the mayor of Minneapolis, the mayor of St. Paul, also speaking today. So they called the neighboring city, the Twin City to Minneapolis. Reporting live, I'm Moment Qureshi.
Social media reaction has been swift to what's happening in the U.S., especially after a tweet from the U.S. president that stirred up some controversy. Here's our Mitch Burke.
As the Minneapolis mayor took to the podium in the middle of the night with parts of his city lying in utter ruins, one reporter asking him if he had seen Donald Trump calling him a weak leftist mayor while warning looters could get shot. And Jacob Fry did not hold back.
Donald Trump knows nothing about the strength of Minneapolis. We are strong as hell.
And this marks the first time that Twitter users would have to click through a violation notice slapped on a Trump tweet, the tech giant saying it glorifies violence. And then there's this stark contrast, only adding to the condemnation. One user writes, white supremacist march in Charlottesville, very good people on both sides, but people protesting a police killing, and they're all, as the president says, thugs. I'm Mitch Burke.
You're listening to 680 News. Well, Ontario's chief coroner says it will hold an inquest into the death of a teen at a provincially run school for the blind. Samuel Brown, who had a genetic condition that left him blind, deaf, and nonverbal, died in February of 2018 while attending the W. Ross McDonald School in Brantford. Now, his parents say just 12 hours passed between the school notifying them that their son wasn't feeling well to when he was pronounced dead in hospital. The family's lawyer says they began campaigning for an inquest last September, saying it was the only way to understand what happened.
There's a cultural problem around institutional neglect, clearly. It's so well documented. So in my view, there's something about the culture at the institution that is a breeding ground for neglect.
Now, the coroner's office confirmed a pending inquest, but has not set a date.
It's not neglect. It's
The Premier and Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health are expected to outline the next phase of COVID-19 testing in this province later today. 680's Stuart McGinn joins us with more on that and the latest number of cases.
With more than 18,000 tests completed yesterday, the province beat their goal of 16,000 for the second time in as many days, while reporting 344 new cases and 41 new deaths. But it's testing numbers that have been closely watched, and today will be discussed as part of this new testing strategy that's being unveiled.
We'll be targeting various sectors and hotspots across the province.
Premier Doug Ford has said that includes testing asymptomatic workers, moving from sectors like food processing to automotive, even truckers and taxi drivers, all while regularly testing patients and workers in long-term care. Plus, to anyone worried they may have coronavirus or have come into contact with someone at risk.
Even if you're not showing symptoms, please go get a test.
A technical briefing on this new testing strategy is taking place right now with some of Ontario's top doctors, while Ford will be joined by Ontario's health minister and Dr. David Williams for the province's updated one this afternoon. I'm Stuart McGinn.
You're listening to 680 News. It's 11:38. The federal government is extending the ban on cruise ships and won't commit to forcing airlines to provide passengers with full refunds. With details from today's federal briefing, here's our Parliament Health reporter, Cormac McSweeney.
The initial ban on
cruise ships was set to expire on July 1st, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government is extending that prohibition.
Large cruise ships will not be allowed in Canadian waters until at least October 31st.
Cruise ships with less than 100 passengers, however, may resume some operations on July 1st, but only if provincial, regional, and local authorities allow. The Prime Minister also not committing to forcing airlines to provide financial refunds to passengers with canceled trips. At the moment, most airlines are providing vouchers or credit. Trudeau says it's a fine balance between consumer protection and not causing financial devastation for airlines. Trudeau is considering possible changes, however, to the U.S. border restrictions after stories of family members with different citizenships being stuck on either side of the border and not being allowed to cross.
We have been looking at ways of perhaps allowing close family members, children, spouses, or parents of Canadian citizens or permanent residents to be able to reunite under strict conditions.
The Prime Minister also discussing his call with the premiers last night on long-term care and paid sick leave, saying the federal government will support them on these measures, but he puts the onus back on the provinces.
What's this paid sick leave, all these weird fucking programs? Why are you not pushing your game?
Hospital after a two-vehicle crash in Scarborough. It happened around 10:30 this morning.
You're still looking at the Indian problem. That's the one that'll work. The white
the victim
people, the white
suffered
people,
serious
the one that'll work.
injuries. There's no word on any charges.
Fucking murder your whole
The
family.
barely was on the loose in the Barrie area has been
the
safely
last
captured this morning. Police say staff with the Ministry of Natural Resources tranquilized the animal just after 10 o'clock this morning. The bear was actually first spotted in an industrial area around 5 a.m. before it moved to a residential neighborhood near Essa Road and the 400. The bear is being loaded onto a special trailer and will thankfully be relocated.
And now the 680 News gas price update. Enpro predicts the price will not change at midnight. It'll stay at 92.9 cents a liter.
680 News Time, 11:40.
Getting you where you need to go
Faster.
The most traffic in Toronto. 680 News.
So what's everyone talking about today? We will let you know in 25 minutes or less. Hi, I'm Jordan Heath Rawlings, host of The Big Story, a daily podcast that tackles the topics that matter most to Canadians. We'll make sense of the headlines, digging deeper into the conversation with the country's best journalists and experts who will help shape your perspective with their wit and wisdom. The Big Story, new episodes available daily at 4 a.m. Listen and subscribe for free with your podcast player and at frequencypodcastnetwork.com.
Find your frequency.
680 News Time, 11:41.
Time for traffic and weather together all the ones. Here's Jordan Kerr.
This report is brought to you by Ontario Nurses Association. A couple of issues on the go and some ramp closures. The southbound Leslie ramp onto the eastbound 401 is closed, all because of a crash. The crash happened at the end of the ramp, so it's causing a visual distraction for east 401 traffic as well. Eastbound 401 is slow from Dixon to the 400, expressing collectors, and then from east to Bayview, solid to just east of Leslie and the collectors, all because of that ramp closure. If you're trying to get onto the southbound 400 off of Canal Road, there's no access from Canal Road right now onto the southbound 400, all because of the crash. I got word from a traffic spotter about a crash up at Barrie, northbound on the 400, approaching Duckworth. The left lane is blocked off. A car went into the guardrail. It's backed up from Bayfield to approaching Duckworth. On the westbound Gardner, our problems have cleared away, but we do have delays from west of the DVP to west of Jarvis as you go through the long-term construction zone, then slow again west of Spadina. Busy on and off to approaching South Kingsway. We had an issue around Jameson, that's gone, so it's just volume heading through there. Northbound on the 427 at the 409, the right lane's blocked with a stalled vehicle. No delay there yet, but then it's slow going north of Finch, all because of construction in the left lane. And westbound on the 401, actually trouble-free right now. We had an issue around Warden and the collectors. That's been cleared away, but it is busy westbound on the 401 west of Kennedy and the collectors because of the long-term construction zone. Nurses and healthcare professionals need proper protective equipment. It's their best defense and yours. Join their collective fight against COVID-19 at nursesno.ona.org. Next report, 11:51 with the forecast. Here's Denise Andriacci.
The threat for showers and thunderstorms across southern Ontario today for the GTA. Some areas may see nothing at all, but we still have that chance to see some intense cells roll across the region today. So keep your eyes to the skies. We're watching the radar. If you hear thunder today, make sure you get indoors because there are some intense lightning strikes associated with these thunderstorms that we're seeing on the radar. They're going to track across late this morning and afternoon across the province. So if you are doing any travel on the road, just be mindful. We can see some heavy downpours. The weekend is fresher. Highs near 20 for Saturday and 16 on Sunday. The guaranteed high today, 23. Right now in downtown Toronto, we've got a cloudy sky. We're sitting at 20 degrees at Pearson Airport. It's cloudy, 21, a humidex of 28. 680 News Time, 11:43. Now the Scotia iTrade Market Minute, live from the Business Center. Here's Irene Precklin and Sarah. A down day for North American markets. The TSX lower by 86 points to 15,176, being dragged down in part by financial stocks. Gold stocks, a bright spot as our materials, both gaining ground. On Wall Street, the Dow is now down 221 points to 25,179. The S&P 500 lower by 14. The Nasdaq trimming losses down now just 3 points. Crude futures lower by 15 cents to $33.56 a barrel. Gold going the other way, up almost $22 to $17.50 an ounce. And the Canadian dollar is down a fifth of a cent, valued at 72.43 cents US. At the 680 Business Center, I'm Irene Precklin.
Direct invest with Scotia iTrade. Get started in 3 easy steps and begin your investing journey from home today. Learn more at scotiaitrade.com.
If you've been thinking of getting a backyard garden shed, you should know that DuroShed has been installing sheds and pool cabanas in the GTA for over 25 years. And DuroShed has social distancing down to a fine art. DuroShed will arrive in the morning, work outside all day, and before supper time, you'll have a beautiful new garden shed, storage shed, or pool cabana. You can watch from inside while we build your DuroShed outside. Check out our photo galleries at duroshed.ca. That's DUROshed.ca.
If any of these people ever tried to come in your house on a normal day, we tell them to fuck off.
Don't tell anybody in school about this.
Don't worry, we won't come in. Yeah, we know you won't come in because we wouldn't let you in. You're fucking wasting your time. And I just knew some weirdos were thinking of coming in. Well, we better make commercials telling them we weren't thinking of coming in.
Normal People, new series, now streaming on CBC Gem.
This is All News Radio, 680 News.
A cloudy sky in downtown Toronto. It's 20 degrees. Good morning from the 680 News Broadcast Center. I'm Sarah Parrott. Here are the top stories this hour. More anger, more violence, and more fires overnight in Minneapolis, where protests continued over the death of a black man in police custody. So far, no charges have been laid in George Floyd's death, but the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI say they are conducting conducting a robust criminal investigation into the matter. Ontario is reporting 344 new cases of COVID-19 today, with roughly 18,000 tests completed, which is 2,000 more than the province's daily target. It comes as the Ford government will unveil a detailed plan later today to ramping up testing, targeting hotspots as part of a new strategy.
So what I want to know about.
Time now for 680 Sports from Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Here's Andrew Nye.
Sarah, it'll be exciting to finally put our full roster out again. Back from Colorado Avalanche captain Gabriel Landeskog this morning on Good Show. The Avs battled through numerous injuries this season to finish second in the West, but now Landeskog says, quote, it's basically like a new season with potentially 3.5 months off before we start playing again. That's longer than a regular off-season. As Elliot Friedman reported last night, the NHL has told players training camps won't start before July 10th. He's a very influential figure in the industry, and what he has to say does have weight. MLB Network analyst Carlos Pena speaking on Good Show about his former agent Scott Morris, who suggested to his clients this week, don't bail out baseball owners.
It's here an hour and a half. Now, one fucking bug.
Yeah, we rip for the street niggas, man. The voice of the streets, the black top. Yeah, the niggas that be on the soil, you on the turf out here, boy. You know what I mean?
Fucking feet off you. Why are they bothering me? Oh, just bothering me. But that's just mental illness, right?
I bet I made these niggas run for my nigga, 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 run. I bet I made these niggas run for my nigga just to flash off the blue steel, cap peel. He looked at his man, and his man peeled. It's real. Out here, shit hits the fan hard. I open niggas doors to their crib like the landlord. This shit wasn't planned, God. Niggas try to come for me. I told this bitch to leave my house when she was trying to come for me. This bitch thought I distance, so she told her bro to run for me. Came on a fight thing, but I wasn't. I made him run for me. Yeah, I got my gun out. Told this nigga turn around. You have 5 seconds to run, or you gon' plant the ground. Took off, fell face first when he heard the sound. I ain't even hit this nigga. I think the sound is loud. Nigga went in shock, and I never seen his face again. I did it by myself. I wasn't trying to catch a case again. Next day, he called my phone off of my team. Told him come where I'm at. It's gonna be a side thing. Run for my nigga, 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 run for my ladies niggas, run for my nigga, 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 run for my nigga when I ride with the flip bro. Do a home invasion, get the fuck out of the fucking bar. I didn't give a fuck about that bitch that you did. It's time right there and I still slap the piss off. Yellow take the place, call the corner the fastest. Niggas say they want my head when I'm laughing. The big arms to the straight lines can't pass this. And if you do, then the scene get drafted. Stressed out, who got a blunt? Can you pass one? Wake up every day with thoughts like it's my last one. These cops set a free bleed for cause hell. And I got more bars than the Don jail. Fucking wild, same bitch when I walk the 9. There ain't no limit to this living, nigga. Fuck this guy, trust him why? I can't trust him with a fucking trap. Fuck these guys, I'm an egg. I bet I made these niggas run for my nigga, 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 run for my ladies niggas, run for my nigga, 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 run for my nigga.
It's a bus. It's come around sometimes. I remember they used to come around every day. It's good money. Oh, you don't believe me? We have porn stuff and you put in. No, you don't believe me.
Don't get close, we get close when we riding. We get close when we riding. Don't get close, we get close when we riding. If I ain't in the hood, then I'm OT grinding. I'm running by the spots where the cops can't find. Nobody knows. where the cops can't find them on the run. At the spot where the cops can't find them. If I ain't in the hood, then I'm OT grinding on the run. At the spot where the cops can't find them. Where the cops can't find them on the run. At the spot where the cops can't find them. Living life as a dude if he really wants to hurt me. Enough people following me, my own fam dissing me. Love is like a mystery, I ain't got shit to do. I'm on my own, you think they care if I fucking breathe. God bless me, and I ain't even in the mood to sneeze. Check that credit off like the breeze. Do this rap shit with ease. Used to rock for the police. First one to duck, flow and shoot. When it's time to squeeze, first one to go OT for the longest. Get smart, in over 20 years. Then the drop is there, bitches looking at tender life, and he's still niggas, still cricket. God bless my niggas in that whole prison. Screaming idiots. Don't get close when them grains hit the front page or back streets. My wife is will go get it. Focus and have them switched up all in 1 second. Focus and have them switched up all in 1 second. Don't get close, we get close when we riding. Get close. We get close when we riding. Don't get close, we get close when we riding. If I ain't in the hood, then I'm OT grinding on the run. At a spot where the cops can't find them. Nobody knows. Where the cops can't find them on the run. At a spot where the cops can't find them. If I ain't in the hood, then I'm OT grinding on the run. At a spot where the cops can't find them. Nobody knows. Where the cops can't find them on the run. At a spot where the cops can't find them. Is your niggas really riding? Is your girl really riding? I don't know, but I'm strapped. If he comes up, provide him duck low, shoot straight, make sure that she lining. Laugh when I see that pussy nigga start crying. I'm a boss in the jungle, something like a lion. Ask about me, you probably heard that it's like him. Real beat, I ain't trying to butt him up or tie him. Don't get close, we get close to me riding. My nigga fuck my accent, she gave me dope after. She did, so I dashed her. I had a pastor, didn't even cuss one word when I slapped her. Turned it to a whore, stripper. Dancer, taxer, axer, left coast master. Found a sick chick, her mom knows I'm a blaster. She hotels, and I got some girls in the hotel. And I got some girls in the hotel. Don't get close, we get close when we riding. We get close when we riding. Don't get close, we get close when we riding. If I ain't in the hood, then I'm OT grinding on the run. At a spot where the cops can't find them. Nobody knows. Where the cops can't find them on the run. At a spot where the cops can't find them. If I ain't in the hood, then I'm OT grinding on the run. At a spot where the cops can't find them. Nobody knows. Where the cops can't find them on the run. At a spot where the cops can't find them. Back. Don't get close, CBS, you already know what type of day it is. Palmer Media, only getting greedier. ABK, Palmer Court, Marksman, 380 degree, you already know what type of day it is. Sit back.
Oh, man. Apparently, the heat of the cigarette is enough to make that motherfucker die fast. Oh, killing him's easy. How do you kill him without spilling the blood that's inside of him? Jeez. You see some idiots in here that are fucking working at the long-term care homes and shit.
I'm just dealing with my poison, I can get it so
when it comes to these fucking bugs, who would be spreading them? These motherfuckers here ain't flying nowhere. They know to fly.
I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so I'm just dealing with my poison, now you hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, now you hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, now you hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop.
Well, if it was actually a problem, we would have broke years ago. It's been doing that this 10 years. This family, I don't know. It's not opening. It might be in the fucking electric shop. It's long as fucking. The head with my aluminum bat. The weight of the guy, the police.
I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop.
Justin, trying to sickle cell test? Oh, that is provisional responsibility. You can have a sickle cell test? Oh, we know you're one of the niggas. George, Scott, you can have a sickle cell test. Collecting race-based data. Yeah, but you're not releasing it. You're releasing it.
I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hear it. So
And one boy said one day the red man and the black man will team up, but then you'll understand. But even with it back then, you were 400 years in plus. I don't think you understand the guns bust because it's a warrior king. We can do what we want because we own everything that you see from coast to coast. We both because we got the most. Make more deliveries than the postman. Deliver on Sunday, like the mouth vein. Do you understand? We empty out the volcano and your clan like we plan to beat you and me.
Through this pandemic, a former Blue Jay not confident baseball will return, and La Liga is set to resume.
What's your drug problem, bro?
The latest stats can show just how hard the Canadian economy has been hit by COVID-19. On the markets, the TSX down 91, the Dow 194, business at 26. 680 News Time, 12:01.
And I'm Tom for traffic and weather together on the ones and checking that drive this afternoon. Good afternoon, Carrie.
Good afternoon. This traffic report is brought to you by PinnacleHomeCare.ca. Be careful on the eastbound QEW as you're approaching Dorval. In the two left lanes, we have reports. I'll get into you a shout right after this report. Just got that call in from a traffic spotter.
So like
Again, that's eastbound QEW as you're approaching Dorval. And I'm just watching a problem clear right now on the eastbound QEW at Huron, Ontario. The right lane was temporarily blocked. They're just hauling away the cab of a transport truck. So the eastbound QEW, it jets up from just on the road to Huron, Ontario. But once you're past that, it's wide open on the eastbound QEW. Northbound on the 427, just got word from MTO that problem at the 409 has cleared away. And as for delays, northbound 427 is pretty lightly traveled right now. Just watch out for construction from Finch to approaching the 407. The left lane closed through that stretch. Eastbound on the 401, keep in mind as well, the southbound Leslie ramp to the eastbound 401 that's closed because of a collision. Northbound on the 400, as you're approaching Duckworth, we have reports of a collision blocking the left lane. So northbound on the 400, it's now jammed solid from Dunlop to approaching Duckworth. Maintain your independence and thrive at home. Pinnacle Care's highest priority is your health and well-being. Visit PinnacleHomeCare.ca for a free evaluation. And now with the forecast, here's Denise Andriachi.
A quiet and muggy start to the day with the chance of some isolated thunderstorm activity on and off throughout the day today. Overnight tonight, things should be a lot quieter. We'll start to tap into some cooler air through the overnight and through the day on Saturday as we see a shift in wind direction and just some more fresher weather pushing into the region. Your guaranteed high today, 23. Right now in downtown Toronto, it's cloudy and 20 degrees.
That's because of that damn apple juice.
12:03.
Happening right now in Minnesota, the governor of that state is now promising swift justice following another violent night of protests in Minneapolis over the death of George Floyd in police custody. The state police have been called in along with members of the U.S. National Guard.
The white boys tell what happened to boys. Swift justice.
Richie is following the latest news out of Minneapolis and joins us live with more. Moment.
Things are calm in Minnesota right now, Sarah, but it was another rough night on the streets of Minneapolis and St. Paul. The two twin cities saw protesters out once again calling for justice in the death of George Floyd, the unarmed black man who was killed at the hands of a white police officer on Monday. That police officer, along with 3 others, have been fired, but people are calling for arrests and criminal charges to be laid. Now, overnight, there was a fire set at the police precinct where those police officers worked. There were smashed windows, looting as well.
You could have said millions of dollars doing what you should have done in the first place. No, you're going to punish
feeling the pain of people. It's been decades, if not centuries, worth of pain that people are not speaking out about.
Who's your number one training partner, bro?
And it says that we have to get things back in order before justice can be served.
We have to restore order to our society before we can start addressing the issues. Before we turn back to where we should be spending our energy, making sure that justice is served swiftly, and that we learn something from what George Floyd gave on Monday.
Now, Governor Walz has called this one of the darkest chapters in the state's history since Floyd was killed in the days that followed the mass protests on the streets of Minneapolis and St. Paul. He is calling for swift justice.
It is my expectation that justice for the officers involved in this will be swift, that it will come in a timely manner, that it will be fair.
Better line them all up and pick which one is getting shot.
Reporting live, I'm Omen Qureshi.
Now, Twitter has slapped a warning on one of U.S. President Donald Trump's tweets about those ongoing protests, but at this point has not removed it. Our Mitch Burke has the story.
President Trump taking to Twitter as the fires raged on overnight, using the word thugs in all caps to describe the protesters, ending off with, quote, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts." But that part of Trump's remarks cannot be seen until you click through a Twitter-imposed warning, because the tweet violated its rules about glorifying violence. The Minneapolis mayor had to be told Trump called him weak in the same breath as Jacob Fry addressed his city in chaos in the middle of the night.
Weakness is pointing your finger at somebody else during a time of crisis. You better be damn sure that we're going to get through this.
It marks another moment in an ever-mounting war between Trump and his preferred social platform after Twitter fact-checked 2 of his unproven tweets about voting by mail. I'm Mitch Burke.
680 News Time, 12:06.
He makes my jumpsuit look like a
Government
fucking
will
business
reveal
suit.
Ontario's
Like,
new
seriously.
COVID-19 testing strategy today, which is expected to target
You would sooner
hotspots.
see me standing next to you in
Ontario
this at the
reports a
gym
slight
than him
drop in
naked
new
in the
cases
locker room.
today. 680 Stuart
Yes, you
McGinn
would.
joins us live with more. Stuart.
Sarah, this strategy is focused on expanding testing in a specific sense to target workplaces and sectors with outbreaks or that have been deemed high risk, and in a general sense to help anybody get swabbed.
The only way we can get those numbers where they need to be is for everyone who feels they need it to get a test.
That was Premier Doug Ford earlier this week, and he'll speak alongside the health minister and the province's chief medical officer of health at 1 o'clock this afternoon on this new strategy. Well, a trio of top doctors are speaking right now about the technical outlines of it. It includes plans as soon as next week to use mobile testing teams to target different work sectors, bringing the ability for a worker to get tested while at their workplace. The plan is outlined to continue testing and contact tracing in efforts to contain spread, making it accessible, available and widespread. There's further goals leading into this summer focused on surveillance as the province's economy continues its gradual reopening. This all comes as we've seen 344 new cases in the province today, but more than 18,000 tests were completed, along with 41 new deaths reported. Reporting live, Stuart McGinn, 680 News.
Some of the people you tested are the same.
Weather alerts. And the severe thunderstorm watch is now in effect for parts of Newark and Durham region this afternoon. The watch now covering several areas, including Newmarket, Georgina, and Uxbridge. Environment Canada says there is a good chance of severe thunderstorms that could produce strong wind gusts along with large hail and, of course, even some heavy rain.
The cruise ship season in Canada is all but dead as Ottawa extends a ban on ships in Canadian waters. Prime Minister also considering changes to U.S. border restrictions, but not committing to helping airline passengers get their money back for canceled trips. Here's our Parliament Hill reporter, Cormac McSweeney.
With fears growing about a second wave of COVID-19, Transport Minister Mark Garneau announces the ban for cruise ships with more than 100 passengers will be extended until the end of October.
To ensure that Canadians and our transportation system remain safe and secure.
On July 1st, cruise ships with less than 100 passengers may resume if provincial, regional, and local health authorities allow. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister not committing to forcing airlines to provide passengers with canceled trips full refunds, many airlines giving vouchers or credit instead. Trudeau says he wants to make sure consumers are treated fairly, but refunds at this time could be financially devastating for the industry.
But I know Canadians at the same time want to make sure we continue to have an airline industry after this very difficult pandemic. Getting that balance right and listening to Canadians is what we will do.
The Prime Minister is also considering possible changes to the U.S. border restrictions after stories of family members with different citizenships being stuck on either side of the border and not being allowed to cross. They're looking at the possibility of allowing that under strict conditions. The Prime Minister also discussing his call with the premiers last night on long-term care and paid sick leave, putting the onus on the provinces, saying they need to tell him what they need, and the federal government will support them. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
And the Toronto Police Union is trying to dispel allegations that officers are responsible for the death of a 29-year-old woman earlier this week. In a written statement, the Police Association says the allegations are unfounded. It goes on to say it supports a full and transparent SIU investigation.
She said
And
minutes later, my daughter is dead. I called for help and now she's dead.
Is finished.
She did
Now, it
anything
also
yet.
says
What
some comments
allegations
on
are you
social media
refuting?
are opportunistic and sensationalize this tragic event with blatant
We can't talk
disregard
about
for
this thing
evidence
that
or
you didn't
fact.
do.
The TPA is
We
pushing
still
the
can't
police
talk about
watchdog
this
to release
thing.
information as quickly as possible. The 29-year-old woman fell to her death from a 24th floor balcony Wednesday afternoon. Some family members are alleging police officers are responsible.
And now the 680 News gas price update. And Pro predicts the price will not change at midnight, staying at 92.9 cents a liter.
Find a car today a much better way. Visit OntarioCars.ca.
Now, see here, I know you're an expert on buying a car and all, and I appreciate that, I really do. But don't you suppose that maybe, just maybe, everybody could use a little help, like Jerry here?
Well, she told me it was easy. I went to OntarioCars.ca, and don't you know, I fell in love with a beauty.
See, look up OntarioCars.ca to find sellers you can trust. Don't worry, you'll do just fine.
OntarioCars.ca.
680 News Time, 12:11.
Time now for traffic and weather together on the ones. Here's Carrie Prunskis.
This report is brought to you by ExploreNet Internet. MTO crews are on their way to pick up some tire debris. It's on the Toronto-bound QEW approaching Dorval in the 2 left lanes, so be careful through that stretch. No delays in this area, and beyond that, it looks pretty good now on the eastbound QEW. We had an earlier problem at Huron, Ontario. Eastbound on the 401, new problems on the ramp to Renforth. At the end of that ramp, the left lane is blocked because of a stalled vehicle, so keep an eye out for that as you're taking that ramp. A slow go across the city on the eastbound 401, delays from approaching Kipling to the 400 express and collectors, but other than that, slow down. We're doing pretty well along the eastbound 401. Just keep in mind a ramp closure. There's no access to the eastbound 401 from southbound Leslie. That ramp is shut down because of a crash, and there's also a crash northbound on the 400 approaching Duckworth. The left lane is blocked. Traffic is extremely heavy northbound 400 from Dunlop to approaching Duckworth. Northbound on the Don Valley Parkway 404 combination, no delays, just a bit of construction to watch out for as you head past Highway 7. The right lane is closed. MTO is reporting no access to the southbound 400 from Canal Road. That ramp is shut down because of a collision. Southbound on the 404, just a bit busy as you approach the 401 ramps. And if you're heading out of downtown on the westbound Gardner, it's smooth sailing from the DVP out to the 427. Westbound QEW, the West Mall and Evans Avenue ramp to the westbound QEW, that's still shut down for construction. And just getting word of a new problem northbound on the 427 at Dixon. The left lane is blocked with a stalled vehicle. Accelerate your internet with ExploreNet LTE service. Now with unlimited data. Visit explorenet.com for details. And now with the forecast, here's Denise Andriachi. We can see some showers and thunderstorm activity today across the GTA and southern Ontario, tracking towards parts of cottage country, whether you're heading north or northeast. That's where we see the threat for more severe weather, but there's still that chance here in the GTA, Hamilton, Niagara, to see some intense thunderstorm cells roll across the region. For Saturday, we're tapping into some fresher air, highs only near 20 degrees with clear conditions and lows near 6 for Saturday night. Sunday, sun and cloud with a slight chance of some showers, very slight chance, and highs near 16. Your guaranteed high today, 23. And right now in downtown Toronto, it is partly cloudy, 20 degrees. At Pearson Airport, mostly cloudy, 21. A humidex of 28. 680 News Time, 12:14.
Time now for the Scotia iTrade Market Minute, and let's check into the Business Center with Irene Franklin. Irene?
And Steve, the TSX is down 95 points to 15,167. In terms of where we're seeing the losses, financials, energy stocks, all weighing down the TSX. Among the bright spots, materials, and gold stocks. The gold index as a whole is up just over 2%. Gold's up $23 now, $17.51.20 an ounce. It's a mix on Wall Street. The Dow is down 223 points. The S&P 500 lower by 13. The Nasdaq is going the other way, higher by 8 points. Shares in Twitter are down 71 cents to $30.89. Crude futures down now 16 cents, 33.55. The loonie now down 0.3%, 72.34 cents U.S. At the Business Center, I'm Irene Franklin.
Direct invest with Scotia iTrade. Get started in 3 easy steps and begin your investing journey from home today. Learn more at ScotiaITrade.com.
Steel dealer days are back this spring with battery blowers and trimmers starting at $159.95, battery chainsaws at $399.95, and battery lawnmowers starting at only $599.95.
Spiel battery tools are easy to start, easy to run, and easy to maintain. And for a limited time, save 50% off your second battery when you purchase a new unit.
You get a battery-powered lawnmower, you got long 24 hours,
are sold at over 1,000 authorized Spiel dealers across Canada. Find yours today at Spiel.ca.
Well, I care what time you cut the lawn. I have to stand there and watch you do it. So you do it, right?
Junk removal.
How does it work?
When our truck team arrives at the home, they'll pick up the junk from wherever the customer decided to put it.
But what if it's still in the home?
Our healthy, happy truck team will only touch the junk they're hauling away, and they never get closer than 6 feet from the customer.
Your home will feel big, clean, and open.
When you want junk to disappear, call 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
Or visit 1-800-GOT-JUNK.com.
This is All News Radio, 680 News.
And we've got overcast conditions right now in downtown Toronto and a temperature of 20 degrees. Good afternoon from the 680 News Broadcast Center. I'm Steve Roberts.
And I'm Sarah Parrots. Here are the top stories this hour.
Well, another night of fires, looting, and arrests in Minneapolis as protests continue over the death of George Floyd, a black man who died in police custody this week. The governor of Minnesota is now promising swift justice in Floyd's death and urging calm as state police and U.S. National Guard troops are called in to help.
Ontario is reporting 344 new cases of COVID-19 today, with roughly 18,000 tests completed. That's 2,000 more than the province's daily target. It comes as the Ford government is expected to unveil a new strategy to ramp up testing, targeting hotspots.
Ottawa is going to extend its ban on cruise ships entering Canadian waters at least until October 31st. Transport Minister Mark Garneau said the ban applies to passenger ships with overnight accommodations for more than 100 people. Meantime, the Prime Minister not committing to forcing airlines to provide passengers with full refunds for some of their canceled trips.
For these stories and more,
yes, they're going to do exactly what I said. It's going to be on a first-come, first-served basis. Half you will get your money back.
Sam from Sports
exactly half the money.
Here's Andrew Nye.
Oh, if your birthday is on this day,
won't start before July 10th. Elliot Friedman, first to report, the league has informed its players that's the earliest start date of Phase 3. Well, Phase 2 of the return-to-play plan is expected to begin sometime next week, perhaps. A few days ago, the Vancouver Canucks hinted they may train in the States, and Elliot told Leadoff this morning he doesn't think they're the only ones considering that. Elliot says, quote, if there's still a quarantine in mid-July, there might be no teams coming back to Canada. Well, are you confident baseball will still happen this year? Former Blue Jay, now player agent Jeff Fry is telling Leadoff, I can't say that I am confident, unfortunately. I think there are a lot of obstacles in the way. Bundesliga on Sportsnet and Sportsnet World this afternoon at 2:30. It's Freiburg taking on Bayer Leverkusen. While Spain's
Who's smart enough to invest in your own gear and cards and shit?
28 other matches will take place over the following 4 days. All
like 10,000 sets of
and it's
everything.
Movie Night on Sportsnet with Friday Night Lights showing at 7. Sports at 15 and 45 past every hour or anytime.
By the way, make it look like it's more popular than you are.
Canadians help their neighbors through tough times. One way you can help your neighbor right now is to donate your car to
I even technically made it honest. They put me out the next day. I would buy up all the before they pulled it off the shelf. I would go buy every goddamn piece of that
48 hours and give you a minimum $300 tax receipt. You'll be supporting
programs and services
that your neighbors are affected by kidney disease urgently depend on. Donate now at kidneycard.ca.
All the Little League, AAA, OHL, all the fucking minor things are still running because they're all within state and provincial jurisdictions.
But at Runner Law, our team will provide the clear, practical advice that you need. My name is Stuart Runner, and right now, the employment relationship is more complicated than ever. Whether you are an employer or an employee, we will help protect your rights.
HR lawyers, employment lawyers, workplace lawyers, whatever you call them, you'll be glad you did. Runnerlaw.ca. 680 News Time, 12:19.
Emergency crews got called out to a two-vehicle crash in Scarborough this morning. This one happened around 10:30 near Birchmount and Shepherd. Paramedics telling 680 News one man suffered serious injuries in that collision. To Oshawa now, where Durham police are now investigating a fatal fire in that city. They were called to a home on Pearson Street near Ritson Road and Adelaide Avenue around 10 o'clock this morning. Police say that one man was found dead inside. The fire is now underway. The cause is still under investigation. investigation. Well, Toronto now, the federal government is pumping more cash into Indigenous communities to help them address the COVID-19 health crisis.
$650 million in additional funding to support Indigenous communities to prevent and respond to the COVID-19 pandemic and ensure that we are able to continue to react to the evolving needs of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities.
And that's Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller, who says that the money will be including at least $285 million to support rapid public health responses, as well as money to help Indigenous Canadians with income supports, as well as funding to support women's shelters. This is on top of the $300 million already announced to assist those communities. Well, New Zealand's battle with COVID-19 seems to be coming to a close. Here's Charles Ledesma.
New Zealand is down to just one person in the entire nation of 5 million people who's known to be infected with the virus after no new cases have been detected for the past week. The country has set a goal to eliminate the virus altogether, an ambition aided by a strict lockdown in late March. That's been gradually
setting goals never ends well.
Well, in total in that country, 1,504 New Zealanders have contracted the virus. Of those, 1,481 have recovered and 22 have died.
680 News Time, 1221.
Time now for traffic and weather together on the ones. Gary Prunskis.
This report is brought to you by Bergmanis Pereira Personal Injury Lawyers. Eastbound on the QEW, approaching Dorval. Watch out in the 2 left lanes. We had reports of some tire debris through that stretch. Not seeing any delays along the eastbound QEW. Other than that issue, it's a pretty smooth drive. Northbound on the 427 at Dixon, MTO is reporting the left lane blocked with a stalled vehicle. So keep an eye out for that as well. I don't see any delays along the northbound 427. And some good news, northbound 400, that problem approaching Duckworth has cleared. So delays are improving, a little bit busy though, northbound 400 from Dunlop up to Duckworth, but it shouldn't be long before that backup has completely eased. Eastbound 401 on the ramp to Renford, the left lane is blocked with a stalled vehicle. It's a slow go across the city on the eastbound 401, delays approaching Kipling to the 400, express and collectors. East of the 400, it's in great shape. We just got word the southbound Leslie ramp to the eastbound 401 that has reopened. Southbound on the 404 Don Valley Parkway, just a minor delay as you're approaching the 401 ramps. And don't forget, still up the West Mall and Evans Avenue ramp to the westbound QEW shut down for construction. It's scheduled to reopen tomorrow. Bergmanis Pereira Personal Injury Lawyers thanks our frontline workers and all of you who have made a contribution in the fight against COVID-19. They're proud to stand by your side during these challenging times and will always be here to support you. Visit them at bplawyers.ca. And now with the forecast, here's Denise Andriachi. The risk for some scattered showers and isolated thunderstorm activity today across southern Ontario. Some areas of the province definitely seeing a higher risk of some intensity and some severity in these storms, but the GTA not completely out of the woods, so we'll be watching the radar very closely. For Saturday and Sunday, we're tapping into a fresher air mass. Highs near 20 for Saturday, near 16 for Sunday. Lots of sunshine on Monday and temperatures again likely in the upper teens, just a hint below seasonal. Your guaranteed high today, 23. Right now in downtown Toronto, a mostly cloudy sky sitting at 20 degrees at Pearson Airport. It is mostly cloudy, 21, a humidex of 28.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, our Moen Qureshi following all the latest happenings in Minneapolis today. The governor of Minnesota now promising swift justice following another violent night of protests in Minneapolis over the death of George Floyd.
News Time, 12:23.
Every Toyota is built to keep you and your family safe. And every Toyota is sold in a way that keeps you and our staff safe. Our showrooms and service departments are open and sanitized regularly. We're following physical distancing guidelines and offer remote or contactless service. And now, you don't pay for 6 months when you finance virtually any new Toyota. So if you're in the market for a Toyota, contact your local dealer or visit shoptoyota.ca. We're ready when you are.
We work
so much
for you.
From talking to the newsmakers,
to getting the answers to what you need to know about COVID-19.
and answers about your job and finances.
If you have a question, ask it at 680news.com/answers.
680 News gets the answers.
We're in this together.
680 News, working for you.
And this portion of 680 News brought to you today by Inline Fiberglass Windows. Turns out we are drinking more tea. That's right. The Tea and Herbal Association of Canada, who knew, has released stats for a 10-week period that ended in early May. It says that sales of tea bags increased by nearly 40%. The association also says 8.2 billion cups of tea are consumed around the world every day, with Canadians drinking more per capita than Americans. Well, coming up in 60 seconds, we got a clearer picture of the economic impact of COVID-19 on our economy. We have got Irene Franklin standing by with those details just ahead.
City News Time, 12:25.
Hi, Tom Rokicki here of Inline Fiberglass Windows and Doors. Now, more than ever, it's important we buy Canadian. You can be surprised as to how many big-name window companies import their windows from cross-border manufacturing plants. Inline Fiberglass proudly engineers and manufactures all our windows right here in the GTA. Canadian-made for a Canadian climate. Visit our showroom, book a virtual consultation, or visit us online at inlinefiberglass.com.
Asking for help isn't always easy.
You mean online? I'm trying to figure that out.
At Scotiabank, it's easy to apply for financial relief for you or for your business. You can quickly request a payment deferral online or access other financial support options. Or we can talk together about a personalized plan that will help you both today and tomorrow. Visit scotiabank.com/relief to learn more. Scotiabank.
You just try to stop people from jumping off roofs.
So now for the 680 News Business Report, let's head live to the Business Center with Irene Franklin. Irene, you're getting a better idea now of just what kind of economic impact that COVID-19 has really had on the Canadian economy.
Yeah, Steve. So Statistics Canada says the economy in the first quarter had its worst showing since 2009 as steps taken to slow the spread of COVID-19 forced businesses right across the country to close their doors and, of course, lay off workers. Stats Canada says gross domestic product fell at an annualized rate of 8.2% in the first 3 months of 2020. The collapse came as GDP for March fell 7.2% as restrictions by public health officials began rolling out during the month, including school closures, border shutdowns, and of course the travel restrictions. Events earlier in the quarter also had a drag on GDP, with StatsCan pointing to the Ontario teacher strikes, as well as those rail blockades we had in February and a drop in oil prices. Household spending was down 2.3% in the first quarter of 2020. That is the steepest quarterly drop ever recorded. So what sort of impact are we seeing on the markets? Well, we are down right across the board, but there's several factors at play. We also had some disappointing U.S. economic news, and of course we are expected to hear from the American president about China and Hong Kong later today. The TSX is down 120 points now, 15,142. The losses are broad-based. Energy stocks and financials among the leading decliners. So financials, all of Canada's 6 big banks reporting earnings this week, and all of them putting aside a boatload of cash for bad loans, of course, because of the COVID-19 impact. Gold stocks, though, a bright spot. The price for gold at $23, $17.51.50, bit of a safe haven. Crude futures down 43 cents, down to $33.29. The Dow Jones lower by 250 points. The S&P 500 down 14. The NASDAQ has gone from negative to positive, back to negative, down 8 points. And the Canadian dollar is lower by 0.3 cents, valued at 72.35 cents U.S. At the 680 Business Center, I'm Irene Franklin.
Get hooked on Bolts Plus. Bolts Plus is your fastener specialist, plus so much more. Check out their massive showroom filled with an extensive inventory of industrial and safety supplies, such as braces, adhesives, and lubricants, anchors, storage bins, paints and coatings, cutting tools, chain hooks, and wire ropes, plus a huge stock of DeWalt and Milwaukee power tools. Let their knowledgeable staff source your hard-to-find items. Bolts Plus, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Many locations to serve you. Visit boltsplus.ca.
Amazon is hiring near you. No resume or previous work experience required. Health and safety are a top priority with all of our roles and sites.
You are looking for Bolts Plus.
Amazon is taking precautions in our buildings to keep people healthy. Learn more or find a job now at amazon.ca/apply. That's Amazon.ca/apply.
Bolts Plus. nuts. Like,
is your breaking news station.
I wonder they didn't make anchors.
Just a reminder, we do have a severe thunderstorm watch still in effect for parts of northern New York and Durham region this afternoon. The watch covering several areas, including Newmarket, Georgina, and Uxbridge. We are looking at some rain continuing in the city today. Maybe a chance of some thunderstorms and a guaranteed high of 23. For tonight, cloudy and a low down to 13. Right now in downtown Toronto, it's overcast and 21. 680 News Time, 12:30.
The sun started to shine. It's overcast. It's the sun starts to break through. You get
Here are Sarah
There's no faith in your ability to look out a well. You're in the basement anyway.
Good afternoon. It's Friday, May 29th.
Good afternoon. Here's what's making news this hour.
Start blowing it.
Governor of Minnesota calls for help to restore order after a violent night on the streets. He's calling for swift justice for the police officers who killed George Floyd.
The province will unveil detailed plans to ramp up COVID-19 testing today, targeting hotspots as part of a whole new testing strategy.
Like you're
still not weather for parts of the northern GTA with a thunderstorm watch in effect for places like Newmarket and Uxbridge.
The Prime Minister is considering easing restrictions at the U.S. border for family reunification as the feds extend the ban on cruise ships but won't commit to full refunds for airline passengers.
And the latest numbers from StatsCan show how hard the economy has been hit. The TSX is now down 116 points. The Dow, 260. The Loonie flying lower. Business at 56.
680 News Time, 12:31.
Time for traffic and weather together on the ones. Here's Carrie Prunskis. This report is brought to you by PinnacleHomeCare.ca. I just spoke with the MTO. They're still on their way to pick up some tire debris on the eastbound QEW approaching Dorval. It was reported in the two left lanes, so use extra caution heading that way. Eastbound on the 401, we have a couple of stalled vehicles on the ramp to Renforth. At the end of that ramp, the left lane is blocked. Then eastbound 401 at the start of the ramp to Warden, the right lane blocked with another stalled vehicle. Neither one is really causing delays. It's only busy on the eastbound 401 approaching Kipling to the 400 express and collectors. But be careful eastbound 401 as you're approaching Warden in the collectors. Eastbound 407, the northbound Young ramp to the eastbound 407, that's been shut down for some paving work, and it's scheduled until the 1st of June. That's going to be a fairly long construction closure there, so just keep that in mind. No access to the eastbound 407 from northbound Young. Northbound on the Don Valley Parkway 404 combination.
Some of these ramps are
construction
closed
at Highway 7. The right lane is closed. It's a pretty smooth drive, though, along that route. And MTO is reporting a ramp closure for the southbound 400. The Canal Road ramp to the southbound 400, that's off limits because of construction. Also, the westbound QEW ramp from West Hall and Evans Avenue is shut down again. That's because of road work. And if you're getting around on city streets, eastbound on the Lakeshore, just east of Parliament, the two right lanes are closed for broken water main repairs. Have you been in an accident? Pinnacle Care can assist you in your recovery at home. From personal care to household management, direct billing available. Visit PinnacleHomeCare.ca. And now the forecast here today's showers and thunderstorms for pockets of the GTA as the risk across southern Ontario for active weather today is pretty big. Most of the province will be affected by active weather. Again, it will be scattered and isolated, so some areas may get away scot-free, others not so much, and we're keeping an eye on the radar. Tomorrow, we'll tap into a fresher air mass for Saturday night near 20 degrees. Clear conditions Saturday night, chilly lows near 6. Your guaranteed high today, 23.
Right now in downtown Toronto, we got overcast conditions and 20 degrees. Out of Pearson right now, it's mostly cloudy and 21. 680 News Time, 12:33.
In an emotional news conference, the governor of Minnesota called for calm in Minneapolis while also acknowledging the unrest that has crippled the city is the result of generations of pain and anguish over racism in policing. His comments come after a third night of violent protests over the death of a black man while in police custody.
And Momin Qureshi following this and joining us now with the very latest coming out of Minneapolis today. Momin?
Steve, it was certainly a very unique news conference by Governor Walz, the governor of Minnesota, speaking very bluntly and very straightforward about the fact that this is not a straightforward situation. This is a very complex situation because overnight we saw protesters out calling for justice for George Floyd, the unarmed black man who was killed by a white police officer. They want arrests and charges laid. There was also some looting, some storefront windows smashed, a police precinct set on fire. So now he wants things order to be restored because he says they need order to be restored so they can focus on what needs to be focused on.
And I refuse to have it take away the attention of the stain that we need to be working on is what happened with those fundamental institutional racism that allows a man to be held down in broad daylight. And thank God a young person had a camera to video it, because there's not a person here or listening today that wonders how many times that camera's not there.
Walls making it clear that he knows that the institutions that people are sort of protesting against, whether it be police or other forms of law enforcement, are the ones that had to come in and clear people out, and are the ones that are going to have to work with restoring order before they can get back to the investigation. And he knows there is a mistrust, as he says, between the public and those institutions. So it is a very complex situation. George Floyd was killed on Monday by that white police officer. He was unarmed. Floyd was at the time. People are calling for arrests and charges to be laid. Those 4 police officers involved in the incident have, however, been fired from their jobs.
Well, during his daily briefing in Ottawa this morning, Prime Minister Trudeau said many Canadians have reacted with shock and horror to recent street protests and riots in the U.S.
Anti-black racism is real. It's in the United States, but it's also in Canada. And we know people are facing systemic discrimination, unconscious bias, and anti-black racism every single day. We need, as a society, to stand together.
He says Canadians must work together to reject all forms of discrimination.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump's tweets about George Floyd's death while in the custody of police have now drawn some rebuke from Twitter.
He's often stayed silent in the face of white-on-black violence, but yesterday spoke out after seeing video of Floyd gasping for help as a white policeman pinned him to the street.
I feel very, very badly. It's a very shocking sight.
Hours later, the president called protesters thugs, tweeting when the looting starts.
And here's an excuse for all these people to watch a white guy killing a black guy.
Says the president violated its rules on glorifying violence. It did not remove the tweet, but anybody looking for it has to click on the warning to see it. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
680 News Time, 12:37. Security at Queen's Park is expecting about 800 people to gather there tomorrow afternoon. The group is calling the demonstration Not Another Black Life, and have planned to be at Queen's Park from 2 p.m. until 6. And they will march from Christie Pitts to Queen's Park. And this follows the death this week of 29-year-old Regis Korchinski-Paquette.
You're listening to 680 News.
Can you tell us what make a model gun that was?
New COVID testing strategies today. It comes as the province also looks at lower numbers when it comes to COVID-19 cases. Our Stuart McGinn joining us live with what is ahead and those case numbers as well.
Yeah, Steve, with more than 18,000 tests completed yesterday, the province beat their goal of 16,000 for the second time in as many days, while reporting 344 new cases and 41 new deaths. But it's testing and this new strategy being discussed today by a trio of top doctors in the province and by Doug Ford, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, this afternoon.
We'll be targeting various sectors and hotspots across the province.
Information released by the province on this strategy. Mobile testing teams will be formed as the province takes steps to test workplaces that are at higher risk of spreading the virus or have already experienced outbreaks in what they're calling high COVID active communities. The strategy says testing is also going to be accessible, available, and widespread to fit this request from the Premier earlier this week.
Even if you're not showing symptoms, please go get a test.
The Dr. David Williams' explanation of this new strategy will be streamed live here on 680 News at 1 o'clock.
Sounds like the same strategy being
repeated areas north of the city are under a severe thunderstorm watch. Environment Canada says northern York and Durham regions could see heavy rain, large hail, and strong winds. Residents in Newmarket, Georgina, and Uxbridge are being advised to watch out for branches falling off trees, loose objects, and lightning.
Well, to now with the Trudeau government considering easing some of
the restrictions at the U.S. border, as it also extends the ban on cruise ships in Canadian waters. With details, here's our Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney. With more and more stories of spouses, parents, or children stuck on either side of the border due to different citizenships, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his government is considering changing directives to border agents to allow crossing for family reunification.
Looking at can we support families that are going through $600 difficult times?
Yes, if they do allow it, it will be under very strict conditions. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister announcing cruise ships with more than 100 passengers will continue to be banned from operating until at least the end of October.
COVID-19.
Do we have any foreign sailors still stuck in Canada like we usually do at some point?
Start July 1st if local authorities allow. The Prime Minister also asked about airline passengers not getting refunds for canceled flights, only vouchers or credit. Trudeau says at this time he won't force the airlines to give money back because it could cause financial devastation for those companies. However, he will monitor to make sure consumers are treated fairly. Meanwhile, on troubles in long-term care facilities, the Prime Minister says he spoke with premiers in a call last night and stressed the feds will support the provinces.
Whether it's more rent money or more resources or whatever it is that the provinces need to get control once again.
But he says premiers are divided on the issue of paid sick leave. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
Now the 680 News gas update and predicts that will not change at midnight. It'll stay at 92.9 cents a liter.
680 News Time, 1240.
As a homeowner, you have built up equity value in your home. With Capital Direct, equity equals flexibility for homeowners. Flexibility to finance your business. Flexibility to renovate your home. Or flexibility to pay off other bills like credit cards or property taxes. If you've got something you would like to take care of, call Capital Direct today at 1-800-NEW-CAPITAL and see what's available for you.
It's my own skin coming off. Well, how it turns that color. It's not dirt. It's my own skin.
News Time, 1241.
Time for traffic and weather together all at once. Here's Karen Prunskis. This report is brought to you by Ontario Nurses Association. Eastbound on the QEW, approaching Dorval, watch out in the two left lanes. May still have some tire debris here. MTO crews were still on their way last I spoke with them. And we have a couple of stalled vehicles to watch out for eastbound on the 401. On the ramp to Renforth, at the end of that ramp, the left lane is blocked. And eastbound 401, as you're taking the ramp to Warden, the right lane of that ramp is blocked off. It's right at the start of this ramp, so be very careful here on the eastbound 401 as you're approaching Warden in the collector lanes. Now, in terms of delays on the eastbound 401, we're not doing too badly. It's a little bit busy as you approach Kipling over to about the 400 express and collectors, but east of the 400, not really seeing any delays. Northbound on the Don Valley Parkway 404, they've just wrapped up the construction at Highway 7, so that right lane has reopened, and it's a smooth drive along the northbound DVP 404 combination. Northbound 400, that looks great from the 401 all the way up to Barrie. A heads up on a ramp closure for the southbound 400. There's no access to that route from Canal Road. That ramp is blocked off because of a collision, according to the MTO. And westbound QEW, the West Mall and Evans Avenue ramp to the westbound QEW, that's shut down for road work. It's scheduled to reopen tomorrow. Northbound on the 427, problems at Dixon have cleared. The Ontario Nurses Association thanks you for staying home these past months. Slowing the spread of COVID-19 enables nurses and healthcare professionals to care for those who need it most. And now with the forecast, here's Denise Andriachi. The threat for ships across southern Ontario today for the GTA. Some areas may see nothing at all, but we still have that chance to see some intense thunderstorms across the region today. So keep your eyes to the sky. We're watching the radar. If you have thunder today, make sure you get indoors because there are some intense lightning strikes associated with these thunderstorms that we're seeing on the radar. They're going to track across late this morning and afternoon across the province. So if you are doing any travel on the road, just be mindful we can see some heavy downpours. The weekend is fresher, highs here 20 for Saturday and 15 on Sunday. Guaranteed high today, 23.
And right now in downtown Toronto, it's overcast, it's 20, overcast conditions.
See, northern in the basement. It's so overcast out there. Very overcast. You had a window, that wasn't
I'm just dealing with my poison like it is I'm just dealing with my poison like it is
poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop.
So how do you deal with the garbage from 630 fucking long-term care homes? Some of these places have 900 residents.
I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop.
This is Dougie's theme music. Maybe he'll show up in his Escalade. It's a bit of freestyle, Dougie. Rob would have done it. It's been an hour since the last bus.
I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and now you hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and now you hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and now you hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop.
Kind of defeats the purpose of singing on fire. This joint's all fucked up. I better just burn it, right? Just get rid of it. When anybody see that you're all fucked up, right? Burn it. Throw another one. Anybody say, oh, you smoked it without me? Nah, that one's fucked up. Even if it's the last one, right? It's fucked up. I have to get rid of it.
I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop.
It sounds good as weed. I don't understand you people. You make money
dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop,
this is the second back garage.
I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it.
So whoop, this tall. It's a fucking store. Nobody wants them.
So whoop.
Natural gum. Well, that's useless. You didn't put enough on there, obviously. Wrong time. Just give me something synthetic. I don't care. Just make the paper stay shut. Because this is the joint I can't smoke. Doesn't matter what it's made of. Right? I'm more than you, motherfucker. I'm gonna go. Oh, you thought it was the last paper. It's the second last. Yeah, you got it back. You didn't see the little buddy over there.
I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my boys and I can hear it. So whoop, so whoop, so whoop.
Better. Coming up at the top of the hour, we'll have the latest out of Minneapolis, where the governor is now calling for order to be restored after a third night of violent protests over the death of a black man in police custody. We'll also have more from Premier Ford. He's expected to do his daily briefing at 1:15 this afternoon. We'll bring that to you live.
I'm John Pretty, president of 2 Minute Truck Canada. All of us are doing our best to stop the spread of coronavirus, and we know it hasn't been easy, especially for our frontline workers who are keeping us safe. Thank you to our tireless healthcare workers, everyone in essential services, and you, our customers, for staying home and helping stop the spread. We're committed to moving our communities forward using the tools we have to keep our customers and employees safe.
You bastard, you're making my legs change color. I'm talking so much shit. Get out of here.
You're listening
to 680 News. 680 News Time, 12:54. SpaceX and NASA will try again tomorrow to launch the Falcon 9 rocket into space. This comes after Wednesday's scrub.
Tomorrow, astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley will try again. Katie Coleman was on STS-93 in 1999 when her space shuttle mission was scrubbed at T-minus 7 seconds. She says going out and doing it for a second time, it can be tough to get excited all over again.
Or you just think, I am not going to get all excited. I will go, I will show up, long underwear, spacesuit, walk out, I will smile, but I am not going to get excited.
She tells me there's something about when that spacesuit goes on, the excitement returns. Alex Stone, EBC News.
Coming up in business news in 60 seconds, the losses keep on growing for the TSX.
680 News Time, 12:55.
Thanks to you, my daddy got home safely from his day at work.
Thanks to you, my daughter got home safely from her girlfriend's party on the weekend. Thanks to you, my brother and I go to and from practice every week.
Most of us do our part to keep our roads safe by driving sober. We plan ahead, designate a driver, take taxis or transit.
I didn't make the big stations. I knew it was weird, and that's why it's weird. You know, what long underwear?
A message from Arrive Alive, Drive Sober, and CAA. To find out more, visit arrivealive.org.
Hi, I'm Sean O'Brien, President and CEO of Reliance on Comfort. Despite everything that's going on, we know that some of you may still need air conditioning, hot water, or plumbing help. I'd like to personally assure you that as an essential service, we're not only here for you 24 hours a day, every day, but also taking steps to make every visit safe for you, your family, and our team. We're grateful to our customers and indebted to our team members at Reliance. We'll get through this together. Thank you.
Oh, no, sir.
680 News Time, 12:56.
Now the 680 News Business Report. Here's Irene Precklett. The Canadian economy had its worst quarterly showing since 2009 in the first 3 months of this year, and analysts think it may be headed to an even steeper drop in Q2. That's when the data will reflect the full extent of business closures and layoffs intended to slow the spread of COVID-19. Gross domestic product fell at an annualized rate of 8.2% in the first quarter, including a 7.2% drop in March. StatsCan says preliminary information indicates an 11% drop in GDP for April. Canadian National Railway says revenue ton miles, the key industry metric, fell 15% year over year in April and 21% in May due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The company's CEO says auto volumes have dropped more than 90% year over year. He says earnings from crude by rail and frac sand are, quote, as bad as can be amid a global glut of oil and a pandemic-induced plunge in demand, both of which have sent oil prices to near record lows over the past 2 months. However, he says grain revenues will likely hit new monthly highs in May, June, and July after notching record levels in March and April. This follows a backlog owing to a late wet crop last year. On the markets, the losses growing for the TSX, now down 149 points to 15,113. The loss is fairly broad-based. Financial and energy stocks among the leading decliners. Material and gold stocks among the bright spots for the TSX. We have oil down 51 cents to 33.20 a barrel. It's a drop of 1.5%. Gold going the other way, up almost $23 to 17.51 an ounce. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 201 points to 25,199. The S&P 500 lower by 18, and the Nasdaq has been moving on either side of even. We're now back on the plus side to the tune of 15 points. The Canadian dollar down 24/100ths of a cent, valued at 72.41 cents US. So to recap, the TSX is down 124 points. The Dow is now down 173. And at the 680 Business Center, I'm Irene Precklett.
Working from home? On the couch? With kids? Yep, this is your new normal. So isn't it time you got a new home office suite? AGMRenovations.com. Turn your basement into a beautiful home office suite from just $4.90 a month. Fully functional. Bathroom, gym, bar, whatever you want in just 3 weeks. Save money, save time, and increase the value of your home. For a virtual consultation, visit AGMRenovations.com.
And by the way, we do bathroom renovations too. If you've got conference calls scheduled between serving lunch, teaching, and working out, we get it.
it. We can't help with everything, but we can make sure your family is protected. RBC Insurance is here to help you get it. Book an insurance check-in at rbcinsurance.com/check-in. Be the first to know. Breaking news as soon as it happens. 680 News.
Now, 680 News regional weather conditions for ExploreNet Internet. Accelerate your internet with ExploreNet LTE service. Now with unlimited data. Visit explorenet.com for details.
What are you?
In Ajax right now, partly cloudy sky, 19 degrees. A mix of sun and cloud in Milton, 22 degrees there. In Orangeville, mainly sunny sky and 20. In Richmond Hill this hour, it's 21 degrees under a partly cloudy sky. Right now in downtown Toronto, becoming more of a mix of sun and cloud, it is 20 degrees. The news will never stop. 680 News is CFTR AM Toronto. It's 1 o'clock.
Number one for breaking news, traffic, and weather. This is 680 News, Toronto.
Here are Steve Roberts and Sarah Parrish.
Good afternoon. This is Friday, the 29th of May.
Good afternoon. Here's what's making news this hour.
After a night of unrest, the governor of Minnesota is calling for calm to restore order, but he also wants swift justice for George Floyd, the unarmed black man who was killed by a white police officer. They said they'll ramp it up. Now they'll explain how. The province is unveiling a new detailed testing strategy for COVID-19 today.
And the Premier is set to hold his daily briefing at 1:15. We, of course, will take you there live as soon as it happens.
The Prime Minister extending the ban on cruise ships in Canadian waters until the end of October and is considering changes to the U.S. border restrictions to allow for family reunification.
Linda's Cog, glad to be part of a healthy team again, and no NBA playoffs without Zion. Sports at 15.
The TSX sees the losses grow. Pop stocks among those down after Canopy Growth reports its latest earnings, and it's a mix on Wall Street. This is at 26.
How'd you lose so much fucking money?
101.
Time now for traffic and weather together on the ones. Here's Carrie Prunskis.
This report is brought to you by 680 News Gets Answers. Eastbound on the QEW, I just spoke with the MTO. They're still on their way to pick up tire debris. Eastbound QEW approaching Dorval. It was last reported in the 2 left lanes, so use extra caution there. Other than that, we're looking at a good drive on the eastbound QEW. Northbound on the 427 had an earlier problem at Dixon. That's now gone. And delays have eased off. The construction has wrapped up on the northbound 427 as you head past Finch. Eastbound on the 401, both of our stalled vehicles have cleared out of the way. So eastbound 401, the ramp to Renforth, that's gone. And as well as that problem that was on the ramp to Warden. Just a little bit of a delay on the eastbound 401 as you head from Kipling to the 400 Express and Collectors. Westbound side of the 401 looks to be in great shape across the GTA. If you're planning to take the eastbound 407, there's no access to that route from northbound Yonge. That ramp is closed for some paving work, and a couple of other ramp closures to keep in mind. The southbound 400 ramp from Canal Road is closed off because of a crash, and you can't get to the westbound QEW from West Mall or Evans Avenue. That ramp is also shut down, but that's for construction. Now, getting around on city streets, I just had a call from a traffic spotter at Queensway and Sherway Gardens. The traffic lights are out at that intersection, so treat it as a 4-way stop, and this is going to affect you as well if you're coming from the southbound 427 onto the Queensway.
So what do you do at 4-way stop? You might as well
680 News is working to get you the answers you need. Ask
us
us anytime at 416-872-6800, and we'll work to get you the answer. And now with a look at the forecast, Natasha, well, a little break from the rain, at least for now. Yeah, we had that one little round of showers pass through this morning. Now we're into the sun and the heat, and now temperatures are going up. This is the fuel for some of the storms that are popping just to the west of us. So we're watching a line of storms. A severe thunderstorm watch has been issued. More so for eastern Ontario, but it does include northern York and northern Durham for some of these storms here later this afternoon. So of course we'll be tracking it. Right now we've got the partly cloudy to mainly cloudy skies, muggy conditions. Storms will end right around 6-7 p.m. and then after that the humidity falls, the skies clear. We're down to 12 degrees. A little bit windy tomorrow out of the northwest. It'll be a mix of sun and cloud. High of 19, and I am going to put in a very, very slight chance of a shower out through the east end of the GTA tomorrow. Tonight we're down to a low of 12 degrees. Right now, severe thunderstorm watch for northern York and Durham. It is currently 21 degrees, humidix 28 at Pearson. 680 News Time, 103.
I didn't want to say nothing.
It was another night of fires, looting, and arrests in Minneapolis as protests continued over the death of a black man while in police custody. Now, state police and the U.S. National Guard have been brought in to help stem the violence, and the governor of Minnesota Minnesota speaking out in a pretty stern way this afternoon.
680's Momin Qureshi is following all the developments in Minnesota and joins us live with the latest.
Sarah, was certainly a very interesting news conference to watch as Governor Walz, the governor of Minnesota, spoke about what has happened in his state over the last 4 days. He calls it one of the darkest moments in his state's history, from when George Floyd, the unarmed black man that was killed by a white police officer on Monday, and the protests that have happened over the last 4 days. Some of those turning pretty aggressive, with a police precinct being set on fire last night, a storefront smashed, and some looting. Now he wants and other things are calm at least right now. He wants some order restored, but he knows this is a very complex situation.
The very tools that we need to use to get control, to make sure that buildings aren't burned and the rule of law collapses, are those very institutional tools that have led to that grief and pain.
And he says that there is a mistrust between the public, some of the public and some of the law enforcement. He's calling on people to help out to restore things so that he says they can get back to the thing that matters, this investigation, which he wants with justice.
It is my expectation that justice for the officers involved in this will be swift, that it will come in a timely manner, that it will be fair. That is what we've asked for.
Walz also publicly apologizing during his news conference for a CNN reporter that was arrested during the reporting overnight. Oscar Jimenez, the reporter there who was there, he identified himself to police. He said he's with CNN. There was camera and crew with them, but even then he was arrested. Walz saying that
none of which explains why were they arresting random black people.
Mr. Justin Trudeau spoke about the situation in Minneapolis during his daily briefing this morning. He says that racism knows no borders, and Canadians have to work together to reject all form of discrimination.
We have work to do as well in Canada, in our systems that we need to work forward on. And I call on all Canadians, whether it's anti-black racism or anti-Asian racism or racism discrimination of any type, to stand together in solidarity, to be there for each other.
He says that many Canadians reacted with shock and horror to the street protests and riots that were happening across the states.
A tweet from the U.S. president stirred up some controversy. Here's our Mitch Burke.
As the Minneapolis mayor took to the podium in the middle of the night with parts of his city lying in utter ruins, one reporter asking him if he had seen Donald Trump, calling him a weak leftist mayor while warning looters could get shot. And Jacob Fry did not hold back.
Donald Trump knows nothing about the strength of Minneapolis. We are strong as hell.
And this marks the first time that Twitter users would have to click through a violation notice slapped on a Trump tweet. The tech giant saying it glorifies violence. And then there's this stark contrast, only adding to the condemnation. One user writes, white supremacist march in Charlottesville. Very good people on both sides. But people protesting a police killing, and they're all, as the president says, thugs. I'm Mitch Burke.
680 News Time 107. The Premier and Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health are expected to outline the next phase of COVID testing in this province today. That should come down in around 10 minutes or so. And our Stuart McGinn joining us live now with more on that and the latest case numbers that came out this morning. Stuart.
Yeah, Steve, Ontario's gradual reopening has been all about watching new cases and how many tests have been complete. The province has struggled this month to continually meet their goal to test 16,000 every day, and the unveiling of this testing strategy is meant to help with that while focusing on particular areas where we have more cases.
We want to encourage people in the hotspots again. We will be announcing that. Please get tested.
Strategy outlines plans to increase testing in COVID-active communities and workplaces using mobile testing teams and pop-up testing centers to make getting swabbed easier and more accessible where it's needed most. There's plans for pop-up centers in Scarborough next week after data from city officials showed the northeast area of Toronto is one of the hardest hit by the virus. We'll hear more about all this from Premier Doug Ford and Chief Medical Officer Dr. David Williams at about 1:15 with their daily 1 o'clock update, slightly delayed so far. Comes as the province today reported 344 new cases and 41 new deaths while testing numbers soared again with more than 18,000 completed. Reporting live, Stuart McGinn, 680 News.
Well, Ontario's main public sector union is calling on Premier Doug Ford to apologize for saying its members had refused to inspect long-term care homes. Smokey Thomas, head of the Ontario Public Service Employees Union, says there was no work refusal at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Ford made the comments yesterday during his daily update. Thomas says Ford's remarks were ill-advised and hurtful, and that the Premier should admit he was wrong.
All residents in northern New York and Durham region being warned, as Natasha mentioned in our forecast, about possibility of thunderstorms this afternoon. A severe thunderstorm watch remains in effect for several areas, including Newmarket, Georgina, and Oxbridge. Environment Canada says heavy rain, large hail, and even strong winds are all possible.
Ontario's chief coroner says it will hold an inquest into the death of a teen at a provincially run school for the blind. Samuel Brown, who had a genetic condition that left him blind, deaf, and nonverbal, died in February 2018 while attending the W. Ross McDonald School in Brantford. His parents say just 12 hours passed between the school notifying them that their son wasn't feeling well to when he was pronounced dead in hospital. The family's lawyer says they began campaigning for an inquest last September, saying it was the only way to understand what happened.
There's a cultural problem around institutional neglect, clearly. It's so well documented. In my view, there's something about the culture at the institution that is a breeding ground for neglect.
The coroner's office confirmed a pending inquest, but has not set a date.
Well, it was a bit of an early start for some folks up in Barrie this morning. A bear that was on the loose in one Barrie neighborhood has now been safely captured. Police say that staff of the Ministry of Natural Resources tranquilized the animal just after 10 o'clock this morning. It was first spotted in an industrial area around 5 o'clock before it moved into residential neighborhoods near Essa Road and the 400. The good news is the bear was loaded onto a special trailer, and the ministry says he will be safely relocated.
And now the 680 News gas price update. Enpro predicts the price will not change at midnight. It'll stay at 92.9 cents a liter.
Steel Dealer Days are back this spring, featuring our line of Steel battery-powered lawnmowers. Make mowing your lawn a breeze with uncompromised power and great features, including a rear bagger, 7 height adjustments, and a mulching blade for $599.95. Or choose a self-propelled model starting at $699.95. Steel battery products are sold at over 1,000 authorized Steel dealers across Canada. Find your local dealer today at steel.ca.
680 News Time, 111.
Time now for traffic and weather together on the ones. Here's Carrie Prunskis.
This report is brought to you by Queensway Hyundai. The slowest route right now is the eastbound 401. It's heavy from just east of the 427 over to the 400 express and collectors, but looks great once you're east of the 400. A few ramp closures to keep in mind. There's no access to the eastbound 407 from northbound Yonge. That ramp is closed for paving work. And westbound QEW, you can't get to that route from West Mall or Evans Avenue. That ramp is shut down for construction. It's scheduled to reopen tomorrow. And a heads up, southbound 400, the Canal Road ramp to the southbound 400, that's blocked off because of a collision, according to the MTO. Looks like a pretty smooth drive, though, on the southbound 400 from Barrie all the way down to the 401. And just as I say that, we get the notification from the MTO that ramp has reopened, so you can now get onto the southbound 400 from Canal Road. Eastbound on the QEW, just be careful as you're approaching Dorval. We had earlier reports of some tire debris in the 2 left lanes. Every time I call MTO, they tell me they're still on their way. So just use extra caution there again on the eastbound QEW as you approach Dorval. On city streets at Queensway and Sherway Gardens, the traffic lights are malfunctioning at that intersection, so it's a little bit busy, especially for westbound traffic. And watch out for this as well if you're taking the southbound 427 ramp to the Queensway. Queensway Hyundai is now offering purchase from Home Solutions or showroom visits by appointment. Last chance for 6-month payment deferral plus 0% lease or finance. Visit queenswayhyundai.ca. And now with the forecast, here's Natasha Ramsahai. So, Carrie, severe thunderstorm watch posted for eastern Ontario, but it is including northern York and Durham eastward, okay? So we are watching for these storms. They're already going off to the northwest of us, so Arthur, Shelburne should get into these storms in the next 15 to 20 minutes. And they're packing a punch in terms of rainfall, very strong wind gusts as these come through. We're really watching the window of about 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. for Toronto proper for most of the storm action in the city. And then after that, the humidity will start falling. We're down to 12 degrees. Tomorrow back up to 19, so it's much more comfortable. Back to seasonal, a mix of sun and cloud. Could even spit out a brief shower out through the east end tomorrow, but Toronto westward should stay dry, and it's windy out of the northwest. Mainly sunny skies return for Sunday to end off the month of May. I can't believe it's May 31st, 17 degrees. Overnight tonight, we're down to a low of 12 degrees. It is currently 23, feeling like 31 at Pearson. 680 News Time, 1:13.
Time now for the Scotia iTrade Market Minute. Let's check in at the Business Center. How are things looking, Irene?
We are still in the red on Bay Street. The TSX is down 113 points deep to 15,149. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 202. The S&P 500 falling 9. The Nasdaq going the other way, higher by 20. Crude futures lower by 24 cents, 33.46 a barrel. Gold up $21 to $17.50 an ounce, and the Ludi sitting at 72.43 cents U.S. That's your Market Minute at the Business Center. I'm Irene Precklett.
Direct invest with Scotia iTrade. Get started in 3 easy steps and begin your investing journey from home today. Learn more at scotiaitrade.com.
Doctors are good people and only want what's good for their patients. So if they say you can't work, I believe them, and so should your long-term disability insurer. My name is Aaron Waxman, and if your long-term disability claim has been denied, call me at 416-661-4878. And don't worry about upfront legal fees, because there are none. At my law firm, we only get paid when you get paid. And before you call, you should always remember that there are no bad questions. 416-661-4878 or on your cell phone at pound LTD.
Home has never been more important, and now you're relying on home appliances more than ever. That's why, just like you, Appliance Canada is soldiering on. They've adjusted their services, so all their expertise and products are still available online, by email, or by phone. Right now, you need your appliances to be dependable, and the professionals supplying them even more so. That's why Appliance Canada is doing what they can to keep home feeling like home. With free delivery in the GTA, get started at ApplianceCanada.com. Appliance Canada, for your home, for your life.
This is All News Radio, 680 News.
We've got partly cloudy conditions right now in downtown Toronto and a temperature of 20. Good afternoon from the 680 News Broadcast Center. I'm Steve Roberts.
And I'm Sarah Parrott. Here's what's making news this hour.
Another night of fires, looting, and arrests in Minneapolis as protests continue over the death of a black man in police custody. Now, state police and the U.S. National Guard have been brought in to help stem the violence. We're going to go live now, though, to Queen's Park and Premier Doug Ford.
We're expanding testing strategies. We're working around the clock to get more people tested across the province. We're going into all sorts of hotspots. We're encouraging people to get tested. And we're also proactively looking for cases. We've started proactive testing of hospital staff, long-term care residents and staff, correctional workers and inmates, and essential workers. We're also proactively testing vulnerable populations and the staff who care for them in group homes, shelters, emergency child care centers, and other congregate settings.
How about sickle cell?
We're getting mobile testing teams up and running. These mobile testing teams will be rapidly deployed to hotspots across Ontario to help deal with any outbreaks. And I'll repeat it again. If you have COVID-19 symptoms, if you're worried, you've been in contact with someone with COVID-19, if you or your family are worried about exposure, in short, if you feel you need a test, please go get a test. You will not be turned away. We have 129 assessment centers open to everyone across the province, ready to serve the people. And I've been pleased to see the testing numbers going up this week. Yesterday, we completed 18,500 tests. This is progress, and the team knows I expect them to keep the numbers up. And I want to be clear, ramping up testing means that we'll find more cases. And that's okay, because finding more cases means we can contain the spread faster. We can't manage what we can't measure. The more people we test, the more contacts we can trace. We have an army of 2,000 contact tracers in the field right now following up on cases. And we need to keep increasing that capacity. More testing will also help us better understand the trends. We want to know how the virus is spreading. We want to know how many people each new case is infecting. Today's expanding testing strategy is a critical step. Getting those testing numbers up is absolutely essential. The more data we have, the better we understand what is happening on the ground. And having that information is what will help us determine the best path forward, because the reality on the ground is different in every part of the province. And we are now getting much better picture of what each region is dealing with. With more testing, that picture becomes more and more clear. And knowing that information will help us be more precise. It will help us be more targeted. It will help us understand where the resources, where the public health measures are needed most. And that's why now that our testing is getting to where we need it. And I am now comfortable with asking our officials to look at a regional approach for a staged reopening. This will be one option we consider as we move into stage 2. This is one option that we're putting on the table.
McDonald's, give me my damn coffee.
Only able to do this now because we're getting our testing to where we need it. So the health officials are looking right now at what regional model could look like. And that work is underway as we speak. I know other jurisdictions have used this regional approach. I want to look at how this has gone in other areas, what lessons we can learn. And it's our job to use the best information we have, to use the advice of the command table, to chart the best path forward. But let me be very clear. I'm not prepared to take unnecessary risks when it comes to our health and safety. We will continue to take a measured, gradual approach to reopening based on the advice of our command table. My friends, we are making progress. We're taking the steps necessary, and we will get through this. We will rebuild what we've lost. We will bring Ontario back with vengeance. We will be the economic engine that gets Canada moving again. And we will do it together. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. I'll pass it over to Minister Elliott.
Thank you, Premier, and good afternoon. Together, we are making real and significant progress in our shared battle against COVID-19. Because of the considerable efforts of every Ontarian, we have entered the post-peak phase of our fight. Workplaces are gradually opening. Health services are slowly and safely resuming. Each of us, parents, workers, small business owners, are adapting to our new normal. As we do, our next phase in COVID-19 testing will ensure we continue to protect the health and well-being of all Ontarians. We are now focusing on 3 branches of testing. The first is assessment center testing. We've expanded who can be tested to now include individuals with no symptoms, but who are concerned about exposure, as well as continuing routine testing of those showing symptoms. This will remain the foundation and primary focus of Ontario's testing, as it has from the very outset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, our strategy builds on this foundation with 2 new branches of testing. The second area of testing will detect and contain cases by expanding surveillance for vulnerable populations who are not showing symptoms, including in our long-term care homes, retirement homes, and other shared living spaces like shelters and group homes. We're also targeting testing of workplaces in priority sectors. Third, we will reserve testing capacity to ensure that we can quickly respond to COVID-19 outbreaks, including in specific neighborhoods, regions, or at hospitals and workplaces. This will include the rapid and agile deployment of mobile testing. Combined, the significant expansion of testing will provide valuable information about the spread of the virus in different communities across the province. We will continue to learn from this data and adjust or adapt as needed to ensure we continue to protect all Ontarians. As always, nothing is more important. Thank you.
We'll go to the phone line for questions. Just a reminder, 1 question, 1 follow-up. First question.
First question comes from Mark Douglas from 680 News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Premier. If I understand you right, with the staged regional reopening, is this going to mean, in so many words, that different regions will be opening on a different schedule? And if that's the case, would Toronto be the last one possibly open, or less dense population areas, would they open first?
Well, again, I always say everything's on the table. I think that's one of my favorite sayings because it's so fluid. As you see, things can change rapidly. But before I start off, I just want to thank Dr. Hunter, Dr. Allen, Dr. Williams, Matt Anderson, CEO of Ontario Health. We have incredibly great team of medical professionals that give us advice, and that's a fraction of our team. And I'm always going to listen to the medical advice of our command table. It's absolutely critical. But to answer your question, Mark, it's an option that we're looking at. I know other jurisdictions have done this, and again, everything's on the table.
And as a follow-up, just that specific phrase, everything's on the table, this has been an idea that's not been on the table before. If I recall, you've been asked about this idea of different reopening plans for different regions, and if I remember right, you've been resistant to that idea.
Yes.
What's changed now?
Well, again, the more testing that we do, the better idea we have of hotspots throughout the province. We've ramped up testing, and I want to thank, first of all, I want to thank the people of Ontario. Because without them, we wouldn't be able to get the numbers up. So I thank everyone for going to get tested and continue to go get tested. I want to thank the health table. These are the folks that I take the advice from. And if they feel, once they have the numbers and a better idea of where the spread is, and once we find out where the spread is, we can contain it with the mobile units. That's the reason we have a better idea. And I've always said you can't manage unless you measure, and the way we measure by increasing the testing. And all thanks goes to the people of Ontario, Public Health, Matt Anderson, and this guy's an absolute champion. I have to tell you, I call him 11, 12 o'clock at night. He answers the phone. And,
don't do this motherfucker, don't sleep.
Can't say enough about our team. They're incredible.
Next question. Next question comes from Jeff Gray from the Golden Mail. Please go ahead.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, good morning. I wanted to ask about the testing and the target. It has taken quite a journey to get the province up to the 20,000 now that it can test. Do you see a need to go higher than that? How much higher? How many more tests do you think we need to do, and is it realistic to expect us to be able to do that in the coming weeks?
Well, I'm not going to quantify any numbers per se. They're doing an incredible job. We were up 18,000, I think a week and a half ago. Then they dipped down, but they're back up. They have a great strategy, and Matt Anderson's heading that up and doing a great job with public health too. I want to thank the public health people. Dr. Williams is doing a great job. He's working extremely hard, and that's the reason we're able to look at different strategies. Again, the more people we get tested, the quicker we can get to stage 2.
Theoretically. And just to follow up with the testing, more testing will mean more contact tracing. You mentioned the 2,000 people. That's a workforce that's going to have to increase in this to keep up with more tests.
Yes. And we're doing that. We're looking to hire more contact tracers, and I got to give a shout out to Chrystia Freeland, Deputy Prime Minister. She's offered quite a few people too from Stats Canada to help us out, so we're grateful for that. But we're going to ramp up the tracing as well.
Next question. Next question comes from Lauren Gardner from Politico. Please go ahead. Hi, Premier. The Prime Minister earlier today said that the federal government is talking to provinces about essentially adjusting the Canada-U.S. border closure to allow family reunifications in some limited circumstances. I'm wondering if you have a position on this, and what
you people knew for months not to fucking get stuck on the wrong side.
I always want to keep a tight border and more screening at the border, but what was explained to myself and the other premiers, there are approximately, I hear approximately about 1,700 families, and reunification of families so important to all of us. You know, and I've heard stories, and a couple of, I think it was last week, that his wife was down in the U.S., he was up here, and
why
did they needed help. So it's so important that we reunite families. I think it's absolutely critical.
They obviously didn't want to be together, or they would.
To answer your question, I support what the Prime Minister's recommending, and it's a relatively small group, I hear. But nothing's more important than family in these situations.
Bella? And to follow up, I'm wondering, have you given any thought to whether, and if this is even possible, any kind of regional approach to cracking open the border a little bit more across the expanse of Ontario's border with, Michigan, New York, all these other states where there are a lot of regional ties? Is there some kind of regional approach that could be taken to adjusting these limitations based on what the epidemiology looks like in a certain case, or is that not?
Well, we extended closing the border, and that's really a federal jurisdiction, and they're going to be working with the U.S. on it. But when that time comes, because eventually it's going to come, we really, really have to ramp up screening, meaning no one gets through this border without screening. And they show symptoms, they get tested, and then they self-isolate and track them down to make sure they're self-isolating. It's absolutely critical. We ramp up at the border.
Next question.
Next question comes from Natasha McDonald from Radio Canada. Please go ahead. Quebec is recruiting 10,000 healthcare workers to staff the province's long-term care homes. They're going to receive paid training, be paid $26 an hour. As you know, Ontario is still facing a shortage of workers, relying on school board staff. So should the province launch a similar recruitment and training campaign?
Yeah, I've been talking to Premier Legault. I heard his comments yesterday, and we need to ramp that up too, and try to help the frontline healthcare workers that are in these long-term care homes. But if you don't mind, I'm going to hand it over to the Minister of Health on this. Thank you.
Well, I think it has become clear that that's an issue in Ontario as well, and we are working on a health human resources strategy for long-term care homes, but also home and community care. I think this is an issue across the board. We need to have more people stay in the professions, personal support workers. Many people are graduating, but they're not all staying in their professions. So we are examining that. We're working with the Personal Support Workers Association and with other organizations to understand what the specific concerns are so that we can address the concerns and create conditions where people do want to stay and do want to make a career in healthcare. I think with some of them laddering up to registered practical nurse or having other educational opportunities will be important, but certainly everyone is important in the whole healthcare chain, and we're so grateful for the efforts of so many people on the front line that go to work each and every day. They are the real heroes in all of this.
My follow-up is for the Premier.
Yes.
Premier, you've been crystal clear about how devastating the Canadian Armed Forces report was. So I'm wondering, are you considering a formal apology to the residents of those homes mentioned in the report and their families?
My heart breaks, and I apologize every single day. This is again, this pandemic has brought a lot to light. That a system that's been broken for decades, and we're doing everything, and we did everything we could to make sure that we put the support that is needed. And the 19 homes in red right now, again, we're having the inspectors, we have the hospitals in there, we've taken over the management seven different long-term care homes, and absolutely, it's heartbreaking. And we're going to fix it. My job, I said right from day one, I'll take ownership of it. I'll take ownership because I'm premier, and the buck stops with me. And I inherited a broken system that I'm going to fix now with the help of medical professionals, and we're going to take care of it. But I also, I always try to look at the glass as half full instead of half empty. Well over 80% of the homes have done an incredible job. The frontline healthcare workers are amazing. They're heroes. The ones, even these infected homes that went in there, they put everything on the line for us and did their best. I always say it starts at management, and 80% of the homes, in excess of 80%, are doing extremely well and being run very well. I'm sure there's some bad actors, but the vast majority of homes are being well run, and the folks are taking care of it.
Next question.
Next question comes from Rob Ferguson of the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Hi, Rob.
Oh, hi, Premier. I just wanted to check. Yesterday, you were pretty adamant that we would not do reopenings or regional reopenings. At what point yesterday, last night, or this morning did the light bulb go on in your head and say this was okay? What was the turning point?
There's never a light bulb that goes off in my head. I take the advice. It's about a team approach, everyone working together, including what you hear out in the public, what you hear right across the province. And again, if the health table comes back and says there's absolutely no way, 100%. I'm no health expert. I rely on health and science. I'm not going to go against the advice of medical professionals in this. And again, the more tests that we're seeing, and the numbers were very, very positive when I saw 18,000. I thought that's great. And you heard the strategy through Matt Anderson and Dr. Heyer and Dr. Allen, extremely bright individuals. And then we have Dr. Williams and his team as well. There's no way I'm going to disagree with the advice of any medical professionals. But we have more testing. We have a better scope on what's happening around the province. That's what allows us to make these decisions. And moving forward, and I've said it from day one, this thing moves so quick. This COVID-19 moves so quick. It's so fluid from day to day to day. You have to be ready to make the changes. And I think the worst thing anyone could do in my position or any position is dig their heels in and not be open to ideas. I've always been open to ideas, and I'm never too shy to say, hey, we're moving on.
This is a great educational moment for the kids, but yeah, follow up.
Yes, just to follow up on that, when you do regional openings, what are you looking for specifically? Because I know a lot of areas really don't have any or many cases anymore. And what do you do to stop, for example, someone driving from Toronto, where we have a lot of cases, down to London?
You just highlighted the exact problem.
Stop that. Do you do anything about that?
Yeah, I'm going to pass it over to the professional here, Dr. Williams. And again, Dr. Williams, I want to thank you for everything you're doing. This gentleman has been working around the clock on this, so I'm very grateful for his support and his advice.
Yes, as the Premier said, we're looking at our table of how we would do regional opening on that. And what we've seen in the data lately, and now we have most of the long-term care survey done, we're getting a picture of what's happening live time, and a lot of our cases are focusing in around the GTA. So then some health units, as you've noted, are seeing no cases for now sometimes 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and that's very encouraging. So in regional, we have to look at how would you organize that? What does the difference in regional mean? And how do you interpret that to your public? How do you interpret that to your decision makers? That means your municipal officials, so you can communicate this in a way that the public understand. And as they've done in some other areas, that they would respect each other's jurisdictions and not overcome that and try to violate the regionalization and compromise the process in that. So far we've had a great cooperation from our Ontario citizens, and we would hope to include that if we did a regional variation and to I guess reinforce the positive value of how Ontarians respect each other and want to contain this virus.
Right. Next question.
Well, we do want to do that.
Next question comes from Randy Rath from Stage TV. Please go ahead.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Premier. To get back to Rob's question about jurisdictions opening and what they've always been afraid of, people from hotspots like Toronto flooding into those regions, would it not make sense to keep some regions that are an easy drive from Toronto closed, even if they would meet the criteria, simply so that doesn't happen?
Further because you're assholes.
You do, but I just want to pass it over to the expert, Dr. Williams, again, if you don't mind. He's driving the system and he understands it. So
illegal for people's driver's licenses for no reason whatsoever.
So similar to what to Rob's question, if you're going to have that, what kind of definition of region do you work on? When you have two areas right beside each other, there's quite a difference between what level they're at. That makes it very difficult for the public to understand the rationale, and that's why a number of our medical officer health were looking ahead to say, if you give us a target and we have to go below that, what kind of data can we collect locally to say why we're not going to go all the way, we're only going this far, but health units next to us or adjacent to us, if they're different, how do we explain it to our public and our decision makers at the local level why there's a difference, and a way that the public would respect and honor that, and what kind of reasons would you define? So at the point you're raising, that just right adjacent, it would be more frustrating and perplexing to the public, but a little bit further out might make more sense. These are all very good questions and ones we're going to have to look at to understand what the public think of regions and areas that not only are defined, but ones that would make sense as far as the local data is concerned, and they would want to continue to respect that and to continue the downward flattening of the curve here in Ontario.
Fucking polka dots.
Okay, so if I can interpret what you just said, we're more likely to see areas, say, in the north and more than a day's drive away from Toronto open sooner than areas that are more centrally located around Toronto. Am I correct?
So again, we have to look at that and see where the cases are occurring. One of the aspects we have to be careful of in our regionalization.
You can't get this guy to accept your answer. You're going to get the whole problem. Right.
Right. I think this might be another. And we know we're very concerned about the north, where we have remote communities, especially First Nation communities, that we've been very attentive to, working with our counterparts, whether it's the Chiefs of Ontario, or with the Anishinaabe Nation, or with Lookout First Nation Health Authority and other treaties, to say, what is the safe precautions there? Some of those ones have still had cases in the last week, so they have not been down to that zero mark for a number of days in a row. So we want to see that there, and then to look at the cross-border aspects from other places, such as from south of the border, because border crossings, there's only one about an hour from Thunder Bay, and you have Manitoba as well with Kenora. So we have to be attentive to those other aspects, not just in isolation, but to see where those risks can come from, and to be concerned that if it did get into one of those areas, that would be very difficult to contain, and we do not want to take that chance or risk, so be reassured. So it's not just some numbers at one time, it's the wider picture that we have to consider.
Next question.
Just say that.
Next question comes from Lucas Meyer from Newstalk 1010. Please go ahead.
Lucas.
Thank you very much. Just to go back a little bit on what Rob was saying, Premier, one of the reasons that you obviously been resistant is that whole issue that Randy was talking about and the travel. And you have to look at a lot of factors. Are you concerned that that certain people and certain Ontarians are actually going to be upset by this, in the sense that they're going to see certain areas of the province open and theirs won't? And, they're going to have to wait. And does this also mean you're going to open up more on the Service Ontario side, where we've seen issues there?
Well, good question. And again, that's on the table right now, and we're looking at it, a regional approach. But again, it changes all the time. I'm going to give you an example. It wasn't probably more than 2 weeks ago, or a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, that I talked to a lot of mayors up in cottage country saying, no, they don't want people coming up. And I think everyone remembered that. And then about a week and maybe a week after that, a week and a half after that, and I remember telling people, bring up your own food, right? I got a call from half a dozen mayors saying, okay, tell them not to bring up their food because the retailers want people to start buying out of their shops. So it's not their fault. It's very fluid. It moves quickly on this. And I understand, maybe 1 week they'll say they don't want them, and then a couple of weeks they want them. So we're going to look at everything. And the more testing we do, the better results we can have and measure and look at stage 2.
Doug, you really sound like a drug
dealer. Thanks. And so I guess you're not particularly concerned about alienating certain parts of the province. And perhaps a question for the minister. You mentioned yesterday that we're at least a week away until considering phase 2. How does this decision now potentially affect the timeline of when phase 2 might begin for certain areas?
I'll pass that over to the minister. Thank you.
Which ministry is that? Health minister?
Well, we developed a plan very early on for 3 stages of openings. That's something that's very important from a public health perspective, because we need to see the effects on public health with each stage. So we are just now starting to see cases that are probably resulting from the gradual reopening of our economy in stage 1. That needs to be thoroughly examined so we can then decide at what time we should open up to stage 2 and under what circumstances. The regionalization is a separate issue, but the timing of the stages won't be. That's going to be based on the number of new cases, the hospital capacity, the contact tracing, and all of those things have to come together for the public health table to make a decision that they feel that it's safe and make that recommendation to us as government that it's time to move forward. So we need to be very cautious and measured about this. I know that people are anxious to get back to business, but public health has to be the number 1 concern, and the health and safety of all Ontarians is our primary concern and always will be.
Last question.
Last question comes from Colin DeMello from CTV News. Please go ahead.
Hi there, good afternoon, Premier. I just wanted to ask a question about long-term care. So you say that the federal government needs to help the province with the cost of overhauling long-term care. I'm just wondering if you have a dollar figure attached just now. How much money are you looking for from the federal government for an overhaul of the system?
Well, yesterday in the conversation with the Prime Minister and the other premiers, he understands how serious the situation is in a couple of the provinces, and it affects everyone, and he's committed to make sure he's there to help the most vulnerable and to protect them. To give you an exact dollar figure, I don't have that, but we'll have that as we move forward. And make sure that we have the support of the federal government. Again, I'm grateful for their support and the comments that the Prime Minister has said yesterday in our call.
Hey, you know that Ontario thing you did? Zero.
Thank you, Premier. And I understand that the province obviously has its fiscal restrictions, as you said in the past. But I'm wondering, why isn't Ontario willing to bankroll the entire cost of overhauling the long-term care sector in our province? And don't our seniors deserve that type of investment from the province that they've spent an entire lifetime working to support?
Well, first of all, they deserve it. They're the ones who helped build Ontario, helped build Canada. If there's anyone who deserves it, they deserve it. Financially, we just need the support. We don't have the printing press that the federal government has. And I'll spend every penny we have to make sure the people are taken care of, the most vulnerable are taken care of, and we're getting to that point. But I just appreciate the support the federal government is offering. So we're going to take them up on that offer, and you'll be the first to know, and the people will be the first to know how we're going to spend that money on long-term care and come up with a strong strategy. As I said yesterday, we have the immediate issue moving forward for 4 months. God forbid we ever get hit with a second wave, and then a long-term strategy. And everyone needs to be involved. The frontline healthcare workers need to be involved. Even the owners of these long-term care homes need to be involved. Everyone needs to be involved to come up with the right solution.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and have a very safe weekend. And don't forget, go get tested. Thank you.
And you've been listening to Premier Doug Ford's daily briefing at Queen's Park today. The Premier kicking off his briefing, talking about testing and how mobile testing teams are getting up and running, expanding testing centers, and even looking at pop-up locations. He says he is now asking officials to look at a regional approach when it comes to the next stage of opening. We'll have more on what the Premier had to say coming up in just moments. You're listening to 680 News.
And this just into 680 News, a major development coming out of Minneapolis where an arrest has been made following days of protests. We go live to 680's Momin Qureshi, who joins us with the latest information. Momin.
Yes, Sarah, this information coming down really in just the last 10 minutes or so that the Minnesota police officer who was seen in that video with his knee on George Floyd's neck, causing him to die after having it there for several minutes, has now been taken into custody. He has been arrested, so we should be clear. This does not mean that charges have been laid yet, but he has been taken into custody, which is the first step that comes before those charges can be laid. Now, this is something that people have been calling for with these mass protests over the last 4.5 days or so on the streets of Minneapolis, on the streets of St. Paul in Minnesota. You can see that some of those protests clearly have gotten violent with smashed windows and some looting, and the police precincts being set on fire. But many people feeling that the behavior of that officer constitutes a criminal act, a murder. So he has now been taken into custody and placed under arrest. So we will see what steps follow this. I'll have more coming up at 2 o'clock. Reporting live, I'm Momin Qureshi.
680 News Time, 1:49. We are in the post-peak phase of the pandemic in Ontario. From the Health Minister today during the Premier's daily briefing, where he outlined a new testing strategy. Doug Ford also says he's asking health officials about a regional approach to reopen. 680's Stuart McGinn joins us live with the latest provincial news. Stuart.
Yes, Sarah, there's updating testing strategies. We just heard about live here on 680 News is focused on testing vulnerable or at-risk communities and those already seeing outbreaks of COVID-19 by bringing test centers right to them.
These mobile testing teams will be rapidly deployed to hotspots across Ontario to help deal with any outbreaks.
These plans also include creating pop-up test centers in communities where there are more cases. It comes while 344 new cases and 41 deaths were reported today, but testing numbers increased again with more than 18,000 completed.
This is progress, and the team knows. I expect them to keep the numbers up.
Premier Doug Ford said as this strategy gets rolled out, the number of new cases will go up, but said that's expected and okay, while he reiterated his promise that nobody will be turned away from assessment centers. Reporting live, Stuart McGinn, 680 News.
680 News Time, 1:51. Time for traffic and weather together on the ones. Here's Karen Prunskis.
This report is brought to you by Volvo of Toronto. Westbound on the 403, problems approaching Eglinton. In the collectors, the two right lanes are closed for vehicle fire cleanup, and the ramp to Eglinton, that's blocked off by these emergency vehicles. So a slow drive on the westbound 403. It's jammed up from the 401 in the collectors over to Eglinton. Again, that ramp to Eglinton is a no-go right now, and it's just a single left lane squeezing through past this problem. Eastbound on the 401 looks to be a problem-free drive, but it is busy with volume approaching Kipling to the 400 express and collectors. Looks great though once you're east of the 400, and a smooth drive into the Durham region as well. Eastbound 407, you can't get to that route from northbound Yonge. That ramp to the eastbound 407 is closed for paving work. It's scheduled through the weekend. I expect it to reopen around Monday afternoon. And also another ramp closure westbound QEW, the West Mall and Evans Avenue ramp to that route, that's shut down for construction until tomorrow. And last we heard from traffic spotters at the intersection of Queensway and Sherway Gardens, the traffic lights were out. So if that's still the case, remember to treat it as a four-way stop, and also watch out for this as well if you're taking the southbound 427 ramp to Sherway Gardens and the Queensway, because that'll affect you. It's right at the end of that ramp where you encounter that intersection. Any updates as to whether or not those traffic lights are still out, let us know at star 680. Volvo of Toronto is here for you. Whether you're ready for something new or need service, Volvo of Toronto offers exceptional service and safety, even in difficult times. Visit volvooftoronto.com. And now with the extended forecast, here's Natasha Ramsahai.
Yeah, Carrie, we've got severe thunderstorm watches and warnings posted to the north and west of Toronto. We've got intense storms, it looks like damaging winds, and up to nickel-sized hail, the biggest threat with these, which are just approaching Kitchener right now. They'll be going up through Grand Valley and into Shelburne here. So again, still to the northwest. They will be into the GTA here in a few hours. I would say 4 to 6 p.m. is the greatest risk window for Toronto proper. It'll be earlier to the northwest, and then we clear out the skies overnight. Humidity and temperatures falling to 12 degrees, and tomorrow humidity's gone, 19 degrees under a mix of sun and cloud. Could see a few spotty showers to the east. It's a sunny Sunday and 17 and more sun for Monday and 21 degrees. Tonight we're down to a low of 12 degrees. It is currently 23, feeling like 31 at Pearson.
With hail.
And coming up at the top of the hour, the latest on a major development coming out of Minneapolis, where the police officer who killed George Floyd by kneeling on the man's neck while he was handcuffed is now under arrest, but there's no word on charges yet. This follows a third night of violent protests by thousands who demanded justice for the death of another black man while in police custody.
680 News Time, 154.
BDO Debt Solutions understands that certain times can put a strain on your finances. If you're finding it difficult to cover your monthly expenses, keep up with minimum payments, and manage your debt load, a BDO licensed insolvency trustee will provide a free over-the-phone consultation, review your situation, explain your debt relief options, and help find a debt solution that works for you. BDO is committed to ensuring you get the debt help you need when you need it. Call 1-855-BDO-DEBT to book a free phone consultation.
News is always changing. Now more than ever.
Listen 3, 4, 5 times a day.
This is 680 News.
Ask to play us on your smart speaker.
Well, just a heads up, a severe thunderstorm watch remains in effect for parts of northern York and Durham region. And the watch covers several areas, including Newmarket, Georgina, and Uxbridge. Environment Canada says there's a good chance of severe thunderstorms that could produce strong wind gusts, large hail, and heavy rain.
Oh, large
Coming up in business news in 60 seconds, triple-digit tumbles for the TSX and the Dow.
680 News Time, 155.
With TD Insurance, there are so many ways to save, we can't fit them all in this ad. But this guy can try. Alumni and professional preferred rates, home and car bundle, burglar alarm discount, fire alarm discount, online quote discount, mortgage free discount, multi-vehicle discount, driver training savings, winter tire discount, driver's excellent discount, conviction free savings, claims free savings, low mileage savings, ride and drive discount, multi-bike discount, and many more. Over 30 ways to save on home and car insurance. The TD Insurance Savings Commitment. That's what confidence feels like. Learn more and get a quote at tdinsurance.com. Conditions apply.
I just want to celebrate. Super fan with a super deal. Our biggest construction sale is on now. Don't pay for 6 months on all new cars. Your safety is our #1 priority. We have masks and gloves ready for you. Our offices are sanitized every hour. We maintain social distancing.
What if two people come in 1 hour and he stays the next hour?
Get a super deal from the Superfan now. Visit mississauga.com or redstonehyundai.ca. Book your appointment today.
680 News Time, 156.
Now the 680 News Business Report. Here's Irene Precklin. Sarah, if you find that you've been tightening your belt and spending less, you are not alone. Statistics Canada says household spending was down 2.3% in the first 3 months of the year. The steepest quarterly drop ever recorded. The drop in the backbone of the Canadian economy affected both goods and services. Spending on clothing and footwear dropped by 16.4%. Spending on restaurants fell by 10.9%, but we spent more on food and non-alcoholic beverages. That was up 7.2%. And on another positive note, StatsCan says more of us are putting money aside into savings. South of the border, U.S. consumer spending plunged by a record-shattering 13.6% in April. The report showing sharp declines in consumer spending across the board, from durable goods like cars to non-durable items like clothing to services ranging from doctor visits to haircuts. Spending totaling 17.3% for durable goods, 16.2% for non-durable, and 12.2% for services. And we're learning that we will hear from U.S. President Donald Trump at 2 o'clock. He's expected to talk about China as well as Hong Kong. On the markets, the TSX, Sea of Red, down 143 points to 15,118. Among the big drags for the TSX, banking stocks, to a lesser degree, energy stocks. In terms of the banking stocks, we've had Canada's 6 big banks all report earnings today. The big